Meanwhile, the Dragons must beat England in order to make it through to the next stage after suffering a 2-0 to Iran.
An investigation into Dominic Raab's behaviour has been expanded after a third formal complaint. The Prime Minister says he still has confidence in his deputy. Mr Raab has denied all allegations, insisting he's behaved professionally at all times.
And an increase in sales, despite the cost of living crisis, will reflect on Black Friday and look ahead to Cyber Monday.
Despite the fact that says on your screen the world's oldest cat.
Oh, did it?
It did, but we will be looking and talking to the world's oldest cat, but that's not until 9:45, so make sure you hang about till that. As ever, we'd love to hear from you, particularly, actually, about your animals this morning. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Oh dear, I don't think I've ever watched as much football in one sort of dead 12-hour straight as I did yesterday. And all of it disappointing, frankly.
Well, I didn't see the Wales game, got to be honest, but I did see the England match last night.
The Wales game, it was just as though everybody was suffering from the heat, I thought. They were sort of standing around on the pitch waiting for the ball to come to them.
Well, it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon, wasn't it? So it was.
I really thought maybe
very
it was the
hot.
heat. What did you think?
But of course, it was a lot later. I mean, I don't know. Was it 11 o'clock at night or something? The England game, local time. So it's going to be a lot cooler. Despite that, England fans were subjected to a snooze fest as the Three Lions drew 0-0 with the USA.
Yeah, meanwhile, as I was saying earlier on in the day, the Welsh hearts were absolutely broken because you thought they were probably just going to get through with an even no-score draw. And then suddenly, in the last couple of minutes, 2 goals to Iran.
Yeah, OK, well, let's head to Doha. Paul Hawkins is there for us this morning. I mean, whichever match you look at, I mean, although points-wise it was OK for England last night, with both matches it was disappointing performances, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. You called it a snooze fest, Stephen. I'd say it was kind of an anxious fest because, let's be honest, the USA were good. The USA deserved to win. The USA hit the post. England was so bad, they haven't hit fewer shots in a match since 1990 when they put they had 6 shots against the Republic of Ireland at the 1990 World Cup. Last night they had 8. And in the first 40 minutes, so pretty much most of the second half, they had no shots in the entire match. They were dreadful, they were awful, they were slow, lethargic. The USA, by contrast, one of the youngest sides in the competition, looked exuberant, they looked fast, quick, pacey, making decisions quicker, moving the ball quicker. They looked up for it, frankly, and England were pretty shocking. This is what England fans have been telling us about the last night's performance.
US had more energy, they were counter-pressing, and I don't know, we weren't able to pass around and beat their press, and it was really frustrating. That are the old doubts of England are creeping in, I think, aren't they? So, like, no, not confident, but I know that we should do it, and I'll just think about that.
I think it was really good. It was an interesting game, but so was America, so it felt very equal.
I thought it was quite defensive, really, typical Southgate play. I thought it was scared of losing rather than really wanting to win. But overall, I mean, credit to America. I think that although England were favourites, America were always going to be tough to beat. And the main thing is we didn't lose, and I think we've got a great chance of beating Wales. So hopefully we'll still win the group.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll still win the group. Certainly, there's less shouts of it's coming home, more it's just popping in for a cup of tea, to be honest. Wales, on the other hand, they were dreadful as well against Iran. They started quite well. Kiefer Moore getting a decent shot on the keeper, but after that, Iran moving through the gears. They hit the post, each post within, must have been about 20 seconds. And then right at the end, there was 9 minutes of stoppage time. And in the 9th minute of stoppage time, in the 11th minute, because they even overran because of injuries and stoppages in stoppage time, Iran hit back and they went on to win 2-0. Wales were dreadful. Their top players, Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale, miles off the pace. This is what the Wales manager Rob Page had to say.
They deserve the win. Before I made the changes, before I made the substitutions, they hit the post, they hit the bar. They had a goal disallowed first half. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here with sour grapes and and say we deserved anything out of that game.
So how it shapes up for Wales, they needed both England and the USA to draw last night, so that worked in their favour. They've now got to go and beat England on Tuesday, and even then they may not be guaranteed qualification. England, on the other hand, just need a point to qualify for the next round, but certainly if they want to go deep into this tournament, and remember they reached the semi-finals of the last World Cup, they got to the European Championship final last year. If they want to go deep into this tournament, they're going to have to massively up those performances, because the likes of Germany, Spain, Argentina, they're not exactly going to be having sleepless nights. Speaking of Argentina, today they are back in action after that historic shock defeat to Saudi Arabia. One of the picks of today, honestly, it's worth watching even if you're not a football fan. Late on, Argentina play Mexico. That's a 7 p.m. kickoff UK time. Argentina have to win that match. They're taking on Mexico. You can imagine, given the Latin American derby atmosphere, what that one's going to be like. Before that, France take on Denmark, Poland, Saudi Arabia, and then we kick off today, 1 o'clock local time, 10 a.m. UK time, Tunisia take on Australia.
OK, lovely stuff, Paul. Thank you.
It's interesting talking about how much of a snooze fest it was. If you look at the front pages of the Mirror there, yawn in the USA, pictures of the wags, if you like, they're really fed up themselves watching it. And The Sun has exactly the same headline and the same picture.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah. Fascinating, eh?
I thought they were being clever, whoever was writing the headlines for both of those papers.
Then they found their direct rival newspaper has actually got exactly the same front page.
Well, look, let's talk to Eric Winalda, who's a former US international who played in that 1993 US Cup match where England lost 2-0 to the Americans. Morning to you.
Hello.
It's nice to see you, Eric, this morning. Look, looking at the game last night, the USA just seemed more hungry for a win than England did.
Well, I mean, I'm listening to you. You're so negative about your team. I don't think it was as bad as we're playing it out. But I would say this: the Americans no longer fear England as we have in the past. I remember that '93 game that I participated in. That was seen as a monumental win for us, given that it was not a major competition and England wasn't really up for it on the day. I think Ian Wright must have missed 4 sitters on the day. But look, I think listening to the comments, the United States is just as discontent with their team as England is to be sitting on 2 points, having to go into the last game against Iran, a much more difficult opponent than one might think. Their backstory there is Carlos Queiroz, their coach, used to work for the United States Soccer Federation, actually wrote a very long article about what we need to do to win the World Cup. He wrote that. It was called Project 2010. The irony is that he'll be playing to tie on Tuesday. So this is, for us, a very interesting set of circumstances. But we are content with our position, thinking that we can win. But this thing is far from over.
Yeah, it seems very unpredictable generally for all of the countries at the moment. But you could argue, if you like, that USA should be doing even better. So when you look at it with your perspective now, what do you think America can do now to win the World Cup?
Well, I mean, we have come a long way. I think we are proud of the progress. The league is growing, and we've seen the majority of our better players make their way to Europe. They play in Champions League teams. McKennie plays at Juventus. You all know Christian Pulisic, who's playing now with Chelsea. And we've had players at Barcelona, Arsenal. They're scattered around Europe. So our team is gradually getting better. And the World Cup to win the World Cup is quite a task, but I don't think that's really our mindset. Our mindset is to do the best we can, to finish as high as we possibly can, give ourselves an opportunity. So we're very proud of this performance against England, but let's face it, it could have been a game that we could have won. So we're as optimistic as we are about the end of the tournament, or at least getting to the second round. We are very wary of our opponent. So I'm hoping that the boys are ready for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. I mean, you're saying we're all being very negative about England in a way because I think we know we can do better. But I don't know, you just get the impression that youth was on the side. And someone like Pulisic last night was it just seemed to be every bit of action seemed to be right in the centre of it, where we didn't have anyone comparable with that.
Well, I mean, I do think, and Southgate's getting a lot of criticism now. The Safegate is what I think everyone's calling him, because it didn't look like he really wanted to win the game. But you got to credit the Americans and their defense. They really did put up a great fight. But in this particular World Cup, it's so different than any other World Cup that we've been in, because it is in November, because you've already touched on the heat that the Welsh team had to deal with earlier against Iran, which was clearly serving, it was a massive advantage to the Iranian team. But this is an England side that is very capable of exploding. We saw that in the first game. Maybe they took their foot off the gas against us today, but that game against Wales is something that we won't miss. I'm going to be watching two televisions. The games happen at the same time, but that game is just as interesting and fascinating as our game against Iran. A lot of political implications there, let's say.
That's fair enough. Yeah, Eric, really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Yeah.
Love to get your thoughts on that. I mean, isn't it interesting? Eric Winalder, of all people, saying we're being too harsh on England.
Yeah. Well, it comes back down to it is a very British thing, isn't it? We get a bit too negative sometimes and we talk things down. It's a bit like talking ourselves into a recession. We do it a lot with our politicians. Maybe we should take a leaf out of the Americans' book and talk things up a bit.
Maybe.
And they do that. They're very good at that, the Americans.
Well, they are. The Australians are as well, aren't they? They're always very, very positive.
Yeah.
But you have to say, there just seemed to be so many missed opportunities last night.
They really did. But, onwards and upwards, I guess.
Well,
Must
yes.
do better.
We're still in it.
Yeah, well, you
there
can't
you
get out
go.
of it at the moment, can we? The next few games are crucial, though. We'll be learning a lot more about that throughout this morning's programme. We're also, a bit later on, going to be meeting the world's oldest cat.
Yes.
How old do you think the world's oldest cat is? 26, just about to turn 27.
That's phenomenal.
Which in cat years is...
120 odd.
Which is amazing, isn't it?
Just frightening.
She's still going fairly strong. And it just made me wonder, we've been talking all morning, not that there's been much of a morning yet, but we've been talking about how old cats can get, and dogs, for instance. And if you know that your pet is knocking it a bit, and you know you're going to lose her sooner or later, I suppose, the inevitable will happen, what's the best way to get over the death of a much-loved moggy or doggy? Do you just go out and get a new puppy or kitten? Or do you have to go through a period of mourning, or what? I'd just love to hear from you. Yeah. We've been learning all about cats and dogs' teeth as well.
Teeth, well, certainly with cats, the vets age your cat by their teeth, don't they? Because when I got Timmy, they said, "Oh, well, he's 4." So how do you know his teeth?
That's amazing. But if you have a kitten or a puppy, which I've never had, do they have baby teeth that fall out? So, I mean, do you go through a period in the house where you're actually finding little teeth all over the carpet?
Well, except as they eat, wouldn't they eat? Because you can't spit them out, can they? Haven't got that spit
have that
facility.
reflex, do they?
So
they just swallow
eat
it with
them.
their food. I don't know. If you're a cat or a dog owner and you know about these things, do let us know, because we've just realised how little we do know about that.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it? Flossie, the cat's called, which is a perfect name for a very old cat.
It is, yeah.
Flossie.
And especially if you're talking about dentistry too, I suppose. So, if you're a cat or dog dentist, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear your stories as well.
Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories this morning at 6:14. And an independent review into the London Fire Brigade has called it institutionally misogynist and racist. It reveals accounts from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker, women being groped and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after firefighter Jaden Francois Espiri took his own life in 2020.
Over 250 social housing tenants will meet later today for the launch of an official resident-led panel to improve unsafe conditions. The Housing Secretary wants to end tenants being denied a proper voice. It's Michael Gove, and he's cracking down on unsafe social housing conditions after 2-year-old Awab Ishak died from a respiratory condition linked to prolonged exposure to mould.
Rail strikes continue today. More travel disruption, of course. Members of ASLEF across 11 train operators walking out in a dispute over pay, so there will be a significantly reduced service.
So do get in touch with your thoughts on whatever we've been talking about so far, cats and dogs and politics and all the rest of it. That was shocking about the firefighters union.
Yeah.
Absolutely shocking. What's going on? Anyway, do let us know your thoughts. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
If you're a firefighter, actually, be very good to hear from you on that one. It's not something I've ever been aware of.
No.
Got to be honest, no, so sort of a few firefighters and things.
No, but then, of course, we heard after Stephen Lawrence, the inquiry and everything, about the police forces being institutionally racist. And now we're going to be hearing the same sort of thing about our firefighters. That's a truly shocking thing to hear.
Look, Dominic Raab, our Deputy Prime Minister, is now being investigated for at least 3 formal complaints over alleged bullying. Now, he's denied all of those allegations and insists he has behaved in line with the ministerial code.
Well, the inquiry was already looking into his behaviour whilst he was Justice Secretary and Cabinet Office Minister. But his time as Brexit Secretary, apparently, is now also under scrutiny.
Let's talk to former Conservative advisor Claire Pearsall, who joins us now. Claire, good to see you this morning. I'm not going to say no smoke without fire, because that may not be the case, but once you get these sort of headlines coming forward and these sort of allegations coming forward, even if he's cleared, doesn't it end up tainting him?
I think it does, and it would be the same in any job in particular. Bullying is an awful thing to have in a workplace and shouldn't be allowed and should be dealt with quickly. But I think that we need to wait and see what these allegations actually are, because as we saw previously, the reports of perhaps throwing a tomato aggressively at a bag wouldn't strike me as something that was particularly bullying. That behaviour may not be acceptable to somebody, but I'm not quite sure that it would cross that threshold. It's interesting that another complaint has been lodged, which dates back to 2018, when Dominic Raab was Brexit Secretary. And you do have to wonder why that wasn't reported, or if it was reported, why wasn't it looked into at the time? So I think that we have to be a little bit careful. I don't think we can just be judge and jury on this until we've actually seen the details, because it could be a little bit of hurt feelings. It could actually be severe bullying behaviour. But until we see that detail, I think it's really quite difficult to say whether somebody is guilty or not.
The trouble is, at some point, as Stephen was saying, the name itself becomes toxic. And the Tories have got enough problems at the moment, haven't they? I mean, already in today's newspapers, we've got headlines like rising young Tory MP joins the Great Red Wall exodus, rumours of lots of particularly the Red Wall MPs, perhaps already looking for other jobs because they know they're going to lose them.
I mean, this is politics in the round, to be honest. And when you look, there are also, I think, about 12 or so Labour MPs who have decided to stand down at the next election. You always get a natural churn when it comes to election time for many, many different reasons. And it's quite sad when you look at the talent that we will lose, because people have decided that either the job isn't for them, they are young and they want to go and live their lives, and politics does take over. And it isn't the environment for everybody. It is a very male-oriented environment. It's very difficult to be a woman there. It is very difficult to be a young person in politics. So I think that politics is naturally robust in its behaviour. Some people don't take to that very well. I also think that Westminster does need to clean up its act in certain areas when it comes to allegations of abuse and harassment and bullying. But it's a very funny job to have. It takes over your entire life. So I think that we perhaps all need to calm down. We need to look at the cold, hard facts before we start blaming people. But I do think you're right. Once these allegations start coming, it may lead to more. People may feel emboldened to actually say, do you know what? This happened to me and I'd like to report it now. And parliamentarians will have a duty to look at that behaviour. But the ultimate arbiter is going to be the Prime Minister, which is always the failing in the system that we have, is the one person who essentially employs those ministers and those MPs in jobs is the one to decide whether that behaviour is acceptable or not.
Are people getting a bit soft? I mean, you talk about it being a robust environment. I mean, a bit like a newsroom. I mean, I know newsrooms have changed even in my time and have become a little bit more sedate than they ever used to be. I just sort of wonder if people going into politics or working within the sort of surrounds of politics need to be forced to watch episodes of The Thick of It before they decide to take the job.
I think you could well be right. And I, over the last 18 years, have developed an incredibly thick skin and things don't bother me. I don't particularly care. But then I'm of a certain age now where I can do that. If I was in my 20s going into that environment now, I would probably think quite differently. Yes, you do have to have a thick skin. Yes, some things are banter, but then there is also that possibility that things cross the line and it shouldn't happen. And you shouldn't have to put up with it. And I think that's the other side. Just because that behaviour is there doesn't mean that it's acceptable. It doesn't mean that you have to suck it up and get on with it, which unfortunately is a bit of the attitude in Westminster. And especially being female, you do find yourself having to justify your existence a lot more. If you're tough, you're considered to be hard and uncaring. And if you go the other way, then you have too many emotions and you're a woman, you need to just perhaps man up a little. And I've been told these things over the years, so I know that it happens. But yes, you have to be strong. It is a robust environment. But politics, you deal with some really strong issues and you have to be able to overcome that and put your point across. You will be judged, just as you say, in a newsroom and in the media, you will always be judged. Unfortunately, women are judged on emotions and dress sense and hair and makeup, whereas men aren't. So you will always have that difference. But it's one of the best environments that I've ever worked in. And as I say, I've lasted 18 years and hopefully there's a lot more to come.
Yeah. Claire, really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed.
It is a fascinating subject, isn't it, as to whether something is bullying or whether you're being a softie. And you often question yourself, I think, in this. I've been really lucky in my career. I don't think I've ever worked in a newsroom where all of that sort of bullying goes on, but I have heard so many stories.
Well, it does get very... I mean, things are different now, but, I mean, they used to be... I mean, newsrooms used to sit there with your packet of silk cut and your bottle of scotch and type away and all that. And there was lots of yelling and swearing and shouting and all that. And politics, you can imagine being a very sort of similar environment, actually, and people really throwing a strop. Well, should you be offended by that? Or is it very stressful situations? So do you just need to...
Man up.
Get on with it.
I don't know. It's very difficult, isn't it? I worked in Bristol for a lot of my early training, and there was a very famous, I think the newspaper's still there, called the Western Daily Press and the Bristol Evening Post. They were in the same newsroom. And there was a legendary editor there who would just go ballistic if he didn't like something. Doesn't matter how small. He used to terrify particularly junior reporters. And there was this one story, and I gather it was true, that there was a junior reporter who'd been writing something on his typewriter. And I was just about to say his name, I don't think I should. No. He leant over his shoulder and he said, "That's a load of rubbish," picked up the typewriter and threw it out the window. And must have landed on somebody. I don't know, but it was legendary. He could explode like that. Yeah. And that was just, you had to put up with him, and you'd have to put up with him in order to harden up, because you knew you were going into a tough industry.
You see,
that would be completely unacceptable now.
Well, it would be, yeah. I mean, it's not saying that's the right way to behave.
No.
But you also do need to have a tough skin.
Yeah. The young reporters used to shake with fear when he walked in the room, because you didn't know how it was going to go. But it was a good newspaper. Sure, it probably still is.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, any thoughts on that, let us know. We've got much more to come, including the results of this year's Black Friday, as shoppers yesterday apparently bagged plenty of bargains.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It is a dry start out there for many of us, but more wet and windy weather will soon be on the way. However, it is the last bout of Atlantic weather before a change arrives next week. For the time being, a brief ridge of high pressure has affected us during the last 24 hours, but weather fronts are knocking on the door. Those weather fronts are spilling in from the west. Ahead of them, some clear spells, some sunshine first thing for parts of central and eastern England. A chill in the air here, a few mist patches. Further west, it's been a mild start. We've got the wind and rain pushing into Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, Western England and Wales by the afternoon. That rain initially light and patchy, it turns heavier and more persistent later, driven in by gale force winds around coastal areas. However, those winds are coming from the south, so 12, 13, perhaps even 14 or 15 degrees is possible. In East Anglia in the southeast, it's a bright afternoon, but the cloud will be thickening and the rain arrives here during the evening. Likewise for northern Scotland, the rain on and off through the day, but the more persistent stuff arrives during the evening. Could cause some issues for central parts of Scotland because of the very soggy weather that we've seen recently. The rain lingering there through the night for East Anglia in the southeast, but elsewhere it does clear. And with clear spells arriving by dawn, well, it looks like there'll be some showers in the northwest, but otherwise a bright start for many on Sunday. I don't think it'll be a frosty start. There'll be too much cloud and enough of a breeze to prevent that. And we've still got those outbreaks of rain on and off for East Anglia in the southeast during Sunday morning, perhaps turning heavier and more persistent again into the afternoon. Brighter conditions elsewhere, still quite a few showers for parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales, but otherwise some high cloud and largely dry and bright weather. 12, 13 Celsius still possible and a less windy day, certainly. Now into the start of next week, there'll still be a few showers around, especially for western parts on Monday, but overall there is a trend towards drier weather.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
.28 morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
We are going to be meeting the world's oldest cat a bit later on. She's 26, turning 27. And then we were talking about how do you tell how old a cat or dog is if you haven't brought them up from when they were babies. And that got us onto the subject of teeth, because apparently that's how the vets do it.
Well, with
they can
cats,
tell.
certainly.
Right, OK. And then we got onto the subject of if baby cats and dogs have baby teeth, do they fall out and do you find them all over the carpet? Well, Julian in Coventry, hi Julian, says, yes, we found our Maxwell's puppy teeth. Some of them are in the carpet. He's a Staffordshire Bull Terrier and he's now 13 and has had to have some adult teeth out now, just like older humans.
Emma says we've got a 10-month-old cockapoo. His baby teeth fell out and we found the odd tooth in the house.
And Adam says, I believe that puppies do have baby teeth and lose them around 4 to 5 months old, and then they are replaced by older teeth. Never knew that, did you?
Oh, interesting.
We've got a picture of Flossie, actually, who's the oldest cat in the world.
Oh, bless
That's
her.
Flossie, and we're going to be meeting her later on in the programme. But if you've
What a grand old lady she is.
She looks quite good on the fact that you think it's about 120 years of
in human
cat
terms,
years. Yeah, if you like.
Oh, beautiful.
She's taking things gently, isn't she?
She is. She needs a little bit of help with the grooming, apparently, but that's
To have
understandable.
her all those years, though. Wow,
Wonderful.
that's quite something.
John, when it comes to the football, John in Nottingham says, come on, guys, we're top of the group. Great performance, but the group stage is often a lottery. Wales would much prefer to be in England's position right now, as would the USA. Fair enough. And Craig says it wasn't so much the result last night, it was the lacklustre performance.
It was a bit lacklustre, wasn't it?
That's fair
But
point.
as they say in football, it's all to play for.
It's a game of two halves.
Yeah, at least. And an awful lot of extra injury time, and injury time from injury time. So it goes on and on.
Yeah. Well,
It was a bit agonising.
last night.
Yeah, well, if it hadn't gone on and on last night, Iran wouldn't have got those 2 goals if it had ended on time.
for Wales?
They got them.
Yeah.
They got them in the last
extra time, did
couple of
they?
minutes. Yeah.
Oh,
It was excruciating. But there you go.
Well, was Black Friday excruciating for you? Were you forced online or forced to the shops? Well, of course, shoppers do tend to head out in their droves to snap up a bargain in the run-up to Christmas, but many retailers have been worried that this year's sales might be down because of the cost of living crisis.
Well, of course. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody went to Hubbu's warehouse in Bristol to find out whether this Black Friday was a shopping bonanza or a bit of a damp squib.
It's had retailers guessing till the final moment, with consumers' coffers empty and talk of eye-watering pain to come. Would this year's Black Friday be the worst on record? But that hasn't been the case. Orders have been up in November, 52%. Orders are coming in at a vast rate of knots, nearly 2 order lines per second. And that's keeping them busy down there. Here at Hubbu, you'd be forgiven for thinking there's no cost of living crisis. People are spending, and they're spending big.
It's always hard to tell, of course. I mean, things are difficult, but I think Christmas has a huge psychological grip on the British public. So, you know, the odds were always that they were going to respond, whether they meant to or not. But I fear that it would be smaller, but it's really busy, and that's good. It's good for the economy. If we stop buying, then people stop selling, and jobs are lost, and so on. So I think it's a healthy sign.
Healthy too, credit card sales on a par with last year. Shop footfall is up on last year, 16% higher than a normal Friday. The event is an American import, traditionally held on the Friday after Thanksgiving, and marks the beginning of the Christmas shopping season.
It's the moment that retailers are in the black. So up until roughly the 25th, 26th of November, just after Thanksgiving, retailers are trading at a loss. And from this point forward until year end, that's when they're making their biggest profits.
For some, this Christmas will need to find its cheer in other ways, rather than the gift of giving. Some feel retailers have a responsibility to tone down their ads, pare back their offers, so people don't get into even more debt. But Hubbu says this would be wrong.
It's every individual what they order, you know, and actually driving competition across, you know, that reduces prices ultimately, and you know helps people. As soon as you take out competition, then you know, you'll see prices go up, which is the worst thing for the consumers.
With a month to the big day, the signs are people aren't letting the economic climate put a dampener on their Christmas. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Well, we've got much more to come, including all the news and views from this morning's newspaper with Christopher Biggins and Ella Wheeler.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
"6:36, good morning to you, watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
And we're talking cats and dogs today because we're going to meet the oldest cat in the world a bit later on. She's 26, turning 27. And that got us onto the subject of puppies and kittens' teeth. When their baby teeth drop out, do you find them all over the floor or what? And Julia says, our first puppy, Archie, lost his teeth, and I did find them on the floor. But our other two, nothing. Maybe Archie didn't fancy eating his own teeth.
And Debbie, morning Debbie, says, my cat is 21.
Oh.
Hard to believe she was born in 2001. Wow.
Gary says, I've
going.
I've had two cats, mother and daughter. Mother got to age 19. Daughter only managed to age 16. But you obviously loved them to bits. Still
Do they have
long-lived.
dentures?
Dentures?
Dentures? Christopher Biggins is here.
Yeah, sorry, just interested because of cats, you know. I wonder if they're now... That's the next thing. Cats will have dentures.
Can you imagine? Oh, it'd be a job to put them in the morning. Can you imagine? They wouldn't cooperate.
Well, nowadays...
Well, you coped, didn't you?
Oh, well, I might, yes.
It started already.
Mine are quite snug, so we're all right.
Ella Whelan is also with us because we're going to be looking through the newspapers. Morning and congratulations because you are now a mum.
Yes, thank you.
6 weeks old?
Yes.
Baby?
A baby boy.
Baby boy.
Oh, my.
Oh, lovely.
Well done. Yeah, congratulations.
Actually, you look as though you've had a baby. You look smug. It's rather not
Are
smug.
you calling me tired looking?
Well, yes, but you have a radiance about you.
There is a radiance about you, actually.
Yeah, nice.
It's all makeup, it's all makeup.
I was going to say it's a surprising calmness, but maybe that is time. We'll keep going.
Anyway, look, before we have a chat to these two retrobates, let's have a look at the front pages for you. We'll start with the Times. Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police is asking officers to stop virtue signalling on social media and get on with policing.
The Guardian discusses how care charities are being forced to evict disabled residents.
The Mail focuses on England's goalless game against the USA last night.
Yeah, Battle of Britain, they're calling it. The Mirror says yawn in the USA as they declare World Cup weary for England.
And The Sun says yawn in the USA.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, there you go.
And The Telegraph has an exclusive with Princess of Wales, Catherine, who says not enough is being done to help the next generation.
Well, let's talk to Ella and Biggins about some of those. Ella, let's start with The Guardian, should we, and the care charities story.
Yes, this is a terrible story, and so much of our discussion about healthcare focuses on the NHS and what's going on there, but too often we neglect to talk about social care, which is often neglected. And this story is that several big charities that work with and house lots and lots of people with challenging care needs are basically, with the rising costs of wages, energy and food, finding that they might have to actually evict people because they're not getting the right amount of funding from the council.
But how can that be? I mean, how can you evict someone with specialist care needs?
Well, so for example, one charity, Leonard Cheshire, is told The Guardian that they've had to serve 11 eviction notices because that for years now they say they've had to supplement and basically take a loss on care packages, some of which there's inside The Guardian, they have quotes from one individual who's got a £90,000 a year care package, which obviously will have increased if because of energy costs and things like that, and that these charities simply cannot run making a loss because they're not getting enough funding to fund these people.
But if someone has those requirements, shouldn't the government be paying for it?
Yes.
You would have thought.
Yes, you would have thought. But part of the problem is that because there's this system in which social care is separated off from the NHS, and because it doesn't get the same amount of attention, it's often left down to either local councils or, in the case of this individual, Keith Harris, the only reason why he didn't get evicted was because his family lobbied his local MP and basically got sympathy help. But there are lots of individuals who can't do that and who are, OK, the numbers are small. It's still only 11 eviction notices that have been served, but these are people who are incredibly vulnerable, who literally cannot survive alone because they need 24-hour care. Basically these charities are calling on the state to basically inject some money into the system. And also, Keith talks about, who has faced his own challenges, has talked about the fact that it is a real failing of ours that we don't look at social care in the same as he says, national treasure, that we look at the NHS. And we know that, throughout the pandemic, the challenges that faced elderly people in care homes and also people with special needs in care homes, that it just kind of always gets shunted off social care, and it's people who are as much, if not more, in need than those going in for operations in hospital.
How can people think about evicting?
Well, it sounds so inhumane.
It's unbelievable what's going on at the moment.
You just sort of think there's the whole point of the benefit system, that we all pay into.
Yeah.
We all pay our tax for people on benefit. These are the people exactly who the benefit system is aimed at.
Of course.
So that they are provided with a good quality of life.
Yes.
Can you imagine that's all taken care of?
I know, you do.
Until you see headlines like that, you don't really understand what's happening.
No, it's frightening, absolutely frightening.
Well, look, we're running drastically out of time. Shall we shoot ahead to this new biography about the Queen, Christopher?
Yes, Charles Brandreth, yes, who knows the royal family really well. He was a great friend of the Duke of Edinburgh. It's lovely. The Queen, who I absolutely adored, apparently loved, towards the end of her life, Line of Duty, which I think is very...
I know, I love that. In fact, that's how she used to relax, is sit down and watch Line of Duty. But she needed somebody to explain it to her along the way.
Yes, but I do when I watch it. It's very
I have to watch it with
complicated.
subtitles because I have to go back so often and figure out what's going on.
No, it is very complicated. And, of course, I think she didn't like the fact that sometimes the actors would mumble, which, of course, does happen a lot.
Oh, does it?
Well, I think
more
it
and
does.
more people complain about that now.
Yeah, and that's why people use subtitles. But, it's lovely. And I think that she... And also, towards the end, she had a cancer which was giving her, of the bones, which was giving her terrible pain.
That's why, apparently, we were told she had mobility issues.
Yes, because I thought it was that she had... what's that thing you have? A gout. I thought it was gout, but it was obviously, that's the mobility thing,
Well, that's not... Going to the death certificate says she died of old age.
I know, but I think
apparently that's always done if you get to beyond the age of 80 and you're being under constant care of a particular doctor.
Oh, right.
They don't go into specifics.
Particularly in royal circles, they don't go into specifics.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what they said on Prince Philip's certificate as well.
Yes.
But by the sound of it, Giles Brandreth says she knew her days were ending.
Yeah.
And they sort of knew it when it was within 24, 48 hours.
And I also, when she went to say, when the Prime Ministers changed over, she made a great effort to get out of bed, where I think she was. And, of course, she died about 2 days later, didn't she?
You see, that's service.
Isn't it?
Well, she was the best. We'll never see the like again. The interesting thing is, I think Charles is great, but of course he's 74. He's going to have to look to his health and the Queen Consort as well.
Yeah.
They're not young people like she was when she became Queen. She's had years and years of experience and knowing how to do it. But anyway, it sounds a very good book, and it has...
It will be because he knows them.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Giles knows the royal family
and also
very well.
he can tell a good old yarn,
Yeah.
Yes, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
I said we were running out of time. I don't think we are as much as I thought. No, I think...
Never mind.
Doesn't matter. We've got lots of things to talk
about. Ella, let's have a look at turmoil in the Conservative Party.
Yes, well, as you were just talking about earlier in the programme with Claire Pearsall, there's no end of turmoil and struggle and scandal going on in the Conservative Party. It's been, even, you know, I've been out of action for 6 weeks looking after this baby, but I've always had the radio on in the background, and you just... It's never ending, never ending. I could turn it on at any time and hear the same kind of things going around. And now people are starting to make decisions within the Tory party about whether or not they're going to stay. So Dehenna Davison, who was, you know, the young 29-year-old MP for Bishop Auckland, has said that she's going to step down in the next election. She says she wants to focus on her family. She says that she's actually wants to have a bit of a life in her 20s because she's been focused on politics.
Be a normal person.
Be a normal person. I mean...
But you sense she wouldn't be saying that if they were doing really well.
Exactly.
And it was all very exciting.
Exactly. This isn't just a decision to focus on family life. There are people who are hedging their bets. And actually, one of the really interesting little snippets that I picked up from The Independent is that it says that some people, some MPs, will hang on and tell the party that they are going to stay and wait to see when the new constituency boundaries are drawn and then make a decision about whether or not they'll leave or not, which is very cynical. I mean, it's, you know, there is a huge amount... Well, but there's a huge amount of kind of... You know, you think about what politics should be, about not public service, but about an idea of wanting to change the world and not giving up when times are tough. I think a lot of what's for the problem in the Conservative Party, and perhaps someone like Rishi Sunak kind of exemplifies this, is there's a hell of a lot of career politicians, who are in it to be able to further their career.
Wouldn't that apply to all of us if we were doing it to an extent?
I think I'd probably be more idealistic about it, which is that I think there are lots of people who care about political change. It's just that none of them are in Parliament at the moment, on both sides of the House, actually. And I think probably, you know, do they want to stay with the sinking ship? It depends on how much you think the Conservative Party is worth saving. I don't think it's worth saving at all. But there's a kind of distasteful element to the idea that people are just giving up because they fear they're going to lose in the next election. I mean, if you care about politics, give it a go.
Yeah, but if you care about a family and you need an income, you've got to be looking for another job, haven't you, really?
I don't know what happens with the payoffs.
Talking about incomes, I don't know the answer to this question. Three of you may know it. If you're a Conservative and you're in power, do you get more than the Labour people?
Only if you're in government.
Yeah.
If you're in government, you do.
Only if you're a minister.
If you're a minister, I see. You get extra money, right?
You get a bit extra.
Well, of course, now all of the politicians want to be reality TV stars, so they're all, you know, working towards that now.
Well, there's much more money in it.
Much more money, £400,000.
Allegedly, yes. Yeah. He's still in it, isn't he?
And he's still in it, which...
Are you watching it?
Oh, I am, which really annoys me. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, OK.
But it's very annoying that he's still there. I thought he should have gone ages ago.
Tell us about Catherine, Princess of Wales.
Well, yes, I mean, she's...
Isn't it funny how you still feel you have to say it's Catherine we're talking about? Because when you say Princess of Wales, you automatically think Diana.
Diana, I know, and of course she...
I've changed on that.
Oh, I haven't changed yet.
Yeah,
no, I haven't. And also the other day, at the state banquet at Buckingham Palace, she wore the same tiara as Princess...
she looked wonderful.
She did. I mean, she's really, I think, blooming into the most wonderful royal. And I think she's a very good consort for her husband. And I think that together... And she's what she's saying now, not enough is being done to help the next generation, which, of course, is absolutely true. I mean, I think we're forgetting the next generation, which is terribly important.
Which generation do you think had it best?
Oh...
I mean, my sons constantly tell me that it's my generation that had it best.
I think it was,
We had rising incomes, you know, we had booms, several booms. I don't think I'm a baby boomer, no. That's somebody slightly older than me as a baby boomer.
But we saw the 60s, though, didn't we? Which were brilliant times. And then the 70s... I mean, I think we've seen the best. I really do think that. I think your son's right.
Whereas you can say that the post-war generation, you know, or particularly the war generation... They suffered, obviously, during the war. And a lot of young people think that the generation they're in now, they've got it really, really tough.
Yeah.
I know, but don't young people always think that?
Yeah, but haven't they got a point this time?
I think there's challenges. Obviously, there's very serious challenges in the economy and it's affecting people of all ages. But if you think about things like technology, standard of living, access to resources, going on holidays, going out to eat... I mean, the life that I led in my teenage years was nothing like my mother and father's. Nothing like it. They couldn't believe the stuff that I could do.
I bought my first house at 25, I think I was. Maybe not quite that old. Yeah, because you were expected to, and you could. You could, because you could get a mortgage and house prices were fairly cheap.
Yeah.
My sons can't expect, and they moan about this a lot, they can't expect to own their own house.
But it's all about, and it's like there's a deprivation index, isn't there? Which now it says if you don't, you know, you're considered deprived if you don't own an item of clothing that's branded or something like that. It's all these various things. But we never had any of that.
No.
And also, I think, you know, it's interesting what you're saying about your youth. But did you go to university?
Yes.
And did you have to pay for it?
Yes.
Well, you see, when I went to drama school,
Oh, and you didn't.
we didn't have to pay.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so we were rich on £30.
You went to drama school on a grant, did
Yes.
you? Wow.
And on when I started work on £30 a week, we lived the life of Riley. I mean, we could do everything. We couldn't buy a house, but we could live really well. I mean, I remember going to restaurants in the West End where you could, for £5, you could have a bowl of pasta, a glass of wine and a coffee. You know, I mean, it was all very good in those days.
I suppose there is an interesting thing in that I think my generation have had much more, would you call it disposable income? We've had a good time for a lot longer.
Yes.
And think, you know, like the whole cliche of avocado on toast and all that stuff. But it encapsulates the fact that our lives, the quality of life from a much younger age has been, you know, like what you would, expect a kind of rich person to have. But actually the things like owning a home or holding down a long-term, good quality, high-skilled job is less likely. And so that's probably an interesting disparity, which is that you might be eating avocado on toast, but you're still doing a kind of hospitality job that doesn't give you any kind of prospect for long-term stability right up until your late 30s.
And certainly going to university now costs a fortune.
It costs a lot.
I think too many people go to university.
Well, they
too.
do. That's Tony Blair's fault.
Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
It
I mean,
is.
you know, there are so many people we need for jobs like plumbers, and you know, and they should be taught those.
And other jobs you
apprenticeships.
can... Yeah, exactly. There are other
Absolutely.
highly professional jobs, but you can learn through apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I did. I never went to university, but I know, shock horror, but I had a journalist apprenticeship, so I learned as I earned, or I earned as I learned.
And you learned.
It was the best way.
Of course.
It really was.
On that note, cheery or otherwise, we need to leave it with you two, but we'll catch with you a little bit later on.
Let us know, actually, what do you think about that? Which generation has had it the best?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't know.
And are the young generation now right to moan? I don't think they're right to moan, but they may have a point.
Yeah, they may have a point, but they do a lot of moaning. There you go. That's just sort of me
It's
getting
youthful,
older.
yeah.
Now, on to serious matters. Dementia. It affects 900,000 people across the UK, and a new study says 1 in 4 commonly go 2 years before they're diagnosed.
Well, this week, 39-year-old Australian actor Chris Hemsworth, known for playing superhero parts, of course, he said he's taking some time off now after discovering his Alzheimer's risk as part of a genetic test he undertook as part of a TV series.
Well, let's talk to the neuroscientist at the University of East Anglia, Dr. Michael Gray. Great to see you this morning. Look, tell us more about, I mean, certainly with someone like Chris Hemsworth, what have they discovered? What can we learn about Alzheimer's before anything actually is detected?
Well, I think one of the big things is that it's really an insidious disease. It approaches rather gradually. I usually use the example of my family when I talk about this because you can tell from my accent, I'm Canadian. I don't get home as frequently as other people do. And when I go home to Canada, maybe every few years, I see big changes in my parents that my siblings don't see. So I go home and I get quite worried sometimes when I see these massive changes from 1 year to maybe COVID was a really good example, before and after COVID, massive changes in my parents that my siblings didn't see. So they're really, the big challenge is that they creep up on us. Everybody's brain declines. But what we're looking for is these more rapid changes.
Thinking of, and I mean, if we see those changes in ourselves, is there anything we can do about it?
Yes, absolutely. And first and foremost, the biggest thing to do is go and see your GP. Book an appointment, tell the GP what's going on, and then you'll be able to have some clinical tests. Not all memory loss, not all challenges with the brain are necessarily dementia. It could be very simple things like being dehydrated or not having a proper diet, or having stress in one's life, or not sleeping properly. it's really important to get into to see a GP and have the proper tests done.
Are there any key signs that we do actually need to look out for?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the biggest ones would be memory loss. Things like, I mean, we all forget where we place our keys, but if we're starting to do that more regularly, really forgetting things on a daily basis, then that's a sign that needs to be looked at. Difficulty in concentrating, planning tasks. So planning a route, for example, to the grocery store, forgetting where one is when we're off to the store that we would normally go to. Finding it hard to carry out normal tasks. For example, having trouble counting change when at the shops. Struggling to follow a conversation or to find the right word, being confused about where one is, so waking up in the middle of the night thinking one has to be at work, and then mood changes. Depression is actually a common symptom along with dementia.
Okay, look, we've got to leave it there, but it's fascinating to talk to you, Dr. Gray. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
And thank heavens there are charities like Dementia UK that if you've got any concerns or worries, we'll be able to help you with that.
Yeah, and if you want to find out more as well, Dr. Michael Mosley written a long piece in today's Daily Mail, particularly about it, and how exercise can help you fight off dementia. And it's not a huge amount of exercise either, but it's a particular sort. Fascinating.
Interesting stuff. Look, we've got much more to come for you in just a couple of minutes, including more on football, of course. But first, here's your weather.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It is a dry start out there for many of us, but more wet and windy weather will soon be on the way. However, it is the last bout of Atlantic weather before a change arrives next week. For the time being, a brief ridge of high pressure has affected us during the last 24 hours, but weather fronts are knocking on the door. Those weather fronts are spilling in from the west. Ahead of them, some clear spells, some sunshine first thing for parts of central and eastern England. A chill in the air here, a few mist patches. Further west, it's been a mild start. We've got the wind and rain pushing into Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, Western England and Wales by the afternoon. That rain initially light and patchy, it turns heavier and more persistent later, driven in by gale force winds around coastal areas. However, those winds are coming from the south, so 12, 13, perhaps even 14 or 15 degrees is possible. In East Anglia in the southeast, it's a bright afternoon, but the cloud will be thickening and the rain arrives here during the evening. Likewise for northern Scotland, the rain on and off through the day, but the more persistent stuff arrives during the evening. Could cause some issues for central parts of Scotland because of the very soggy weather that we've seen recently. The rain lingering there through the night for East Anglia in the southeast, but elsewhere it does clear. And with clear spells arriving by dawn, well, it looks like there'll be some showers in the northwest, but otherwise a bright start for many on Sunday. I don't think it'll be a frosty start. There'll be too much cloud and enough of a breeze to prevent that. And we've still got those outbreaks of rain on and off for East Anglia in the southeast during Sunday morning, perhaps turning heavier and more persistent again into the afternoon. Brighter conditions elsewhere, still quite a few showers for parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales, but otherwise some high cloud and largely dry and bright weather. 12, 13 Celsius still possible and a less windy day, certainly. Now into the start of next week, there'll still be a few showers around, especially for western parts on Monday, but overall there is a trend towards drier weather.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
A goalless draw for England and a disappointing loss for Wales.
Good morning to you. It's 7:01 on Saturday, the 26th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the whole of the UK on your TV and your radio and online all over the world. You can take us with you wherever you're going. Here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the Three Lions failed to score in their second World Cup match against the USA last night. Gareth Southgate bracing for their next clash against Wales next week. The Dragons, meanwhile, must beat England in order to make it through to the next stage after suffering a 2-0 loss to Iran.
An investigation into Dominic Raab's behaviour has been expanded after a third formal complaint. Rishi Sunak still has confidence, he says, in his Deputy Prime Minister. Mr Raab has denied all allegations, insisting he's behaved professionally at all times.
And an increase in sales despite the cost of living crisis. We're going to reflect on Black Friday and look ahead to Cyber Monday. Don't they just all merge into one now?
Yeah, it's been lasting at least a fortnight now.
It's sort of Black Friday was always what you did on the high street, and Cyber Monday what you do on
online, but it's all online now. Yeah. As ever, you can join in any of our discussions. Please do by emailing us gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, it has to be said, if you're an England fan, you were subjected to a bit of a snooze fest last night. Three Lions drawing 0-0 with the USA. Meanwhile, earlier on in the day, Welsh hearts were broken as they conceded 2 late goals to Iran.
Isn't it? Just to show you these two newspaper front pages, I can't find the other one. They say yawn in the USA because they got a picture. They must have had their cameras trained on the wags all through the match anyway. But there on the front page of The Sun and here on the front page of The Mirror, how to roast your turkey for Christmas, that's not it.
There you go, it's just on the right. There you go.
It's exactly the same front page, if you like. Yawn in the USA, same headline, and the same pictures. They couldn't stand it, and I must say most of us just couldn't believe how boring it was becoming.
Just a bit lacklustre, was it? Let's see what our reporter, Paul Hawkins, made for it all. He's in Qatar for us this morning. Paul, good to see you this morning. What did you make of it all? What do the fans make of it all? They're a bit disappointed, a bit wearied by it all.
Pretty much, yeah. And as an England fan of 44 years old, I've seen plenty of her. And just when your hopes are lifted, they come crashing down, which is why, after that 6-2 defeat, I was feeling quite cautious, feeling uncomfortably optimistic, because if you're of a certain age, you've seen England mess it up before. You've seen these kind of performances. That's not to say they can't recover, but let's be honest, right? Last night was so dreadful. The last time they had few shots, that least number of shots in a match was 1990. They managed 6 shots against the Republic of Ireland in that World Cup. Last night, in the whole match, they managed 8. And in the second half, in the 40 minutes of the second half, they managed no shots at all. And and it wasn't just boring, it was anxious, because the USA clearly were the better side. They did deserve to win. They hit the post. They were youthful, energetic, exuberant, enthusiastic, everything that England weren't against that game, in that game against Iran. So, you know, it was a pretty turgid performance, and that's why the England fans felt like this.
The US had more energy, they were counter-pressing, and I don't know, we weren't able to pass around and beat their press, and it's really frustrating. The old doubts of England are creeping in, I think, aren't they? So, like, no, not confident, but I know that we should do it, and I'll just think about that.
I think it was really good. It was an interesting game, but so was America, so it felt very equal. Yeah.
I thought it was quite defensive, really, typical Southgate play. I thought he was scared of losing rather than really wanting to win. But overall, I mean, credit to America. I think that although England were favourites, America were always going to be tough to beat. And the main thing is we didn't lose, and I think we've got a great chance of beating Wales. So hopefully we'll still win the group.
Yeah, so some criticism of Gareth Southgate because the way he set England up, there was there's a lot of space within the defence, the midfield and the attack. Very easy for the USA to exploit. And then he left Phil Foden, one of England's best players, one of their creative players, didn't even come on. So some questions for Gareth Southgate, but in the press conference afterwards, he did say, look, we've got 4 points from 2 games. We're in pole position to qualify. In terms of what England need in the next game against Wales, that big game on Tuesday, England can afford to lose 3-0 to Wales and still qualify. As long as they avoid a 4-0 defeat, they can still qualify. Wales, on the other hand, very difficult for them. They have to beat England and hope results go their way. They lost 2-0 to Iran yesterday, the Iranians scoring very late into stoppage time in that one. Again, Wales, a very under par performance from them. This is what the Wales manager Rob Page had to say about that.
They deserve the win. Before I made the changes, before I made the substitutions, they hit the post, they hit the bar. They had a goal disallowed first half. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here with sour grapes and say we deserved anything out of that game.
So yeah, the group is pretty wide open. Iran could even finish top. In terms of what's happening today, the pick of the matches today, the late kick-off, so 10 o'clock local time, 7 p.m. tonight UK time. Argentina play Mexico. That is a Latin American derby, which would normally be enough. But the fact Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia in that shock defeat in the first game means they have to win to stay in. Mexico, imagine the bragging rights if they knock Argentina out of the World Cup. So that is one to look out for late on. The noise in that game will be incredible. Before that, France take on Denmark. That should be a good one as well. Poland play Saudi Arabia and Tunisia play Australia. So lots to look forward to at the World Cup today.
Yeah, indeed. I'll tell you what, Paul, yesterday we were so impressed with the pre-match analysis of Rio, the 9-year-old you spoke to yesterday. We thought he was so good, we thought we'd better get some post-match analysis from him as well today. And 9-year-old Rio Bowen joins us down the line as well. Morning to you, Rio. Look, I know you've got to be disappointed with how things worked out yesterday, but what did you make of it all?
We didn't deserve to win. Especially when Hennessy got sent off. I think there was a big loss because he's our best keeper, and obviously Danny Ward did let us down in the Euros. So when Hennessy got sent off, it was a really big loss, and we didn't deserve to win. Iran really deserved it because they had the post a few times, they had a goal disallowed, and but I think first half we played well, but second half I think Rob Page should have brought Joe Allen on a bit earlier than 80th minute. But I honestly think that we're not going to make it through to the group now because of how we played. And Hennessy, if he'd done something different, he could have just got a yellow, and I don't think he should have kicked the player in the face. And he tried his best because he didn't want us them to score, but yeah, it's unfortunate for us, especially our defence. I don't think our defence played well. Joe Rodon I think Joe Rodon should have got sent off that. And we had a few chances though. First half we played well.
Rio, how did you feel at the end when they went into extra time, that injury time? And I think you must have felt like the rest of us that it was probably just going to end with a no-gills draw. And then suddenly things started to happen. How did you feel? What was it like at that moment?
Well, as I said, Danny Ward did let us down at the Euro. So when he came on, it was a bit disappointment, and I think Rob Page should have done some changes on earlier, like Bale should have came off. He wasn't playing that well. He was a bit injured, and Ramsey he played terrible, and Joe Rodon, we could have had a few reds, but we luckily only had one. But Hennessy's not starting next match, which I think is going to be a big loss for us.
You say that you're not going to get through now, but does that mean you absolutely don't think Wales can beat England next week?
I mean, we've got a chance. England have got a really good side, like some young and some experienced players. Like they've got Kane, who's a really old player, but he's a really good player. And they've got also like the likes of Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, and Pickford, stuff like that. And they've got a good backup goalkeeper, Aaron Ramsdale. So we could potentially beat England, but I think it's going to be hard to beat England.
OK. Rio, do you know what? It's really good to talk to you. Keep smiling through all of this.
Well, that's what you're doing.
You've still made a bit of history by getting to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Really good to talk
and
to
commentating it on GB News afterwards. That's what you've done.
Yeah.
You've done somebody out of a job. He's here at the end of the studio here, and I think there's just no point anymore.
You have upset Aidan McGee, Rio. But there you go.
I'll see you later, yeah?
He's better than you.
I know he is, yeah, I know. Don't rub it in. Goodness me. He gets around as well. He was in Doha yesterday, now he's in Dubai.
Yeah.
He's a jet setter, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's a jet setter.
I tell you what is it about you football people, though? Because when I was just trying to go for some basic emotion, you know, I was so excited and I was so disappointed, because that's what I felt like at home watching it. But you guys immediately have to start analysing, don't
analysis.
I know. But I mean, I suppose it's because you've seen things before and you try and mirror what any history or any flashpoints in the past that you can marry up to this. It's not always possible. But when I look at England last night, for example, they didn't win their second game. But I mean, I remember a time when, back in Italia 90, they didn't win their first two matches, but then they still went through. I remember Brazil in 1990 winning all three matches in the group stage, going through like a train, and then suddenly hitting Argentina and Maradona in the second round and going out unexpectedly. So you look for trends. Sometimes they're not always there.
Is it too simplistic for me to say they all looked as though they were feeling the heat?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we were told that the stadiums were going to be temperate. They were going to be... We were told.
You can see the big aircon units behind them, actually.
Yes, we were told. I was told that when I was there in 2010 that that's what they would have, and that was newfangled technology at the time. But the players have been reporting that it's very warm down by pitch side at the moment. So yeah, it's going to be difficult to manage. I mean, last night England looked a little bit sluggish, I felt.
Yes, what do you make of this? Sean, morning, Sean, says, I know some matches focus on a 0-0 draw or points rather than goals to win, because obviously, you know, we did all right points-wise. Getting to the point was all right. But that match was so boring, as boring as watching the House of Lords.
House of Lords, goodness me, that is really bad. Yeah, exactly. I didn't think it was quite that bad. But
I don't think it was that boring if you're a USA supporter.
Well, no, possibly. But the thing is, we tend to... The World Cup attracts supporters who don't necessarily follow football week in, week out. They may not necessarily be aware, as Eric Wijnaldum was saying earlier on, about the improvement in USA football over the last 20 years or so. They do tend to get out of the groups now. They've got some very solid players. They've got players for Chelsea, Arsenal, Juventus, AC Milan. You didn't used to get that even 10, 15 years ago. So they're no mugs. And they will have set out, they will have seen England's first match. They will have been absolutely buoyed by the fact that England didn't make any changes, because that meant that they were going to play exactly the way they played against Iran. So their planning would have been good. If they'd come up with something different, that might have posed the USA a problem. But points-wise, and this is the thing yesterday, look at the difference between Wales and England. One thing England did well yesterday, they realised things weren't going their way, so they kind of retreated a little bit towards the end and said, look, just take the point and get through. It's not going well. We don't need the win especially. We've already got 3 in the bank. Wales, for example, I just felt they panicked, Anne. I mean, from what you saw, you seem to agree with me.
Iran kept up the pressure.
They did. Well, they needed to win.
They got 2 early goals as well, didn't
they did. As Rob Page said, they were the better side, no question about it.
They deserved to
and
win.
I just think that tackle by Hennessy was just so unnecessary. Why do you have to take him out from the knee up at his neck? I mean, it was like a foul that we saw from the West Germany goalkeeper in 1982. And I say West Germany because that's what it was called then. Harold Schumacher, the goalkeeper, he didn't even get sent off for that. I can't believe the referee originally gave a booking. But once you go down to 10 men and you can see the 2 goals. Now, if you'd gone into the England game as Wales, undefeated, with 2 points in the bank, you've got a fighting chance. They've still got a puncher's chance now.
What do they need to... They need to beat England by how much?
No, they can beat England... So, to put England out...
4-0.
Yeah, that's to put England out.
Oh, right.
So, I think Wales aren't necessarily looking that far. They would rather just go through. They can win, but they have to have results going their favour elsewhere. And don't forget, on the Tuesday, they all kick off simultaneously, so there's no advantage of one team kicking off early and then knowing what they have to do is deemed to be a little bit of advantage. But it's not all over. They call it the group of death, this one, because you're going into the last game of the round of group matches with all 4 teams still able to go through.
Is there an overall absolute favourite?
For the overall, yeah, I think it's difficult to see past Brazil at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. And I think sometimes with the heat, you mentioned the heat, historically, up until certainly 2010, that was the first time a European side had won the tournament outside Europe. It tended to be the teams that acclimatised to the heat better and they were used to the heat that did well. It's changed a bit in the last 10, 12 years. We've not seen a South American winner since 2002, but this time may be the right time. Of course, Argentina in action today. They could put right the wrongs of Saudi Arabia. But again, Saudi Arabia in the first match, it's the heat. Are they used to the heat? Was that the reason they beat Argentina?
Is that why we won in 1966?
Because the weather... No,
the weather... at Wembley.
Yeah, no, I think the weather was all right, though.
It probably was, yeah, because the Queen was there, wasn't she?
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Hat, yeah.
Indeed.
Oh, she did have that odd hat on.
She did have a very strange hat, but it was lovely. But it's a long time ago
Yes,
now.
it is. It is. What is it, 56 years, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh.
All our
Start
yesterdays.
winning again.
Aidan, thank you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.
Yeah, and lots more to talk about coming up as well. Shall we bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories? An independent review into the London Fire Brigade has called it institutionally misogynist and racist. It reveals accounts from a black firefighter who had a noose placed by his locker, women being groped, and people having their helmets filled with urine. The review was commissioned after firefighter Jaden Francois Esprit took his own life in 2020.
Rail strikes continue today. More travel disruption expected. As a result, of course, members of ASLEF across 11 train operators are walking out over pay, so there will be a significantly reduced service.
And Catherine, the Princess of Wales, says not enough is being done to recognise the importance of early childhood. Writing in the Daily Telegraph, she says research shows that the early years have such an influence on our ability to form relationships and succeed at work and our health. And she says people need to focus on nurturing children to help them better deal with society later on in life.
The Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings for rain in parts of southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in Wales and England come into force at 2 o'clock this afternoon. They'll stay until 3 in the morning tomorrow. Forecasters say there'll be disruption to travel as a result. I'm being really cynical.
About?
The Princess of Wales. I'm sure what she's saying is absolutely right.
Do you think it's very middle class?
But no, but I do think, how much do they... I mean, they've got nannies and things. I mean, sort of they're not in the real world, are they, in terms of how people have to cope with young children?
No.
I mean, I'm not saying she's wrong, because I think the fundamentals of it are absolutely right.
But if she can make childcare and a movement towards, reminding us that it's about parenting, if she can do that through her high profile, it's a worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I totally get what you mean. People might react and think, well, what does she know about it? Except that she works a lot with those societies and charities, and she's been working a lot on that. But if she can raise the profile of it, much in the same way that Diana raised the profile of AIDS care, for instance, and even landmines, if somebody that high profile can throw the weight of their profile behind a movement, perhaps it will do some good, because I think, personally, there's an awful lot wrong in our society that comes down to bad parenting.
Well,
I hate saying it, but I just think we've forgotten not all of us, obviously, but some people seem to have forgotten how to parent. Or maybe never learned it themselves.
Well, I tend to think there's too much responsibility put on schools.
Yeah, teachers.
You know,
Teachers are being asked to step into loco parentis, literally.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've got to feed them in the morning.
Yeah.
They've got to provide. I mean, certainly a school that I was associated
They complain,
with,
don't
they've
they?
got to provide deodorant and.
Yes, they complain time and again that children come to school now not knowing how to go to the toilet themselves, not knowing how to hold a knife and fork. And it shouldn't be teachers who have to do that. It should be parents. Now, yes, there are terrible pressures on parents now. It used to be, time was when one parent's income was enough to keep a family. And it does seem that it's almost not that way anymore.
No, that's the problem.
And that puts a great burden on women to have to go out and work when they perhaps would like to be at home, or at least one of the parents be at home parenting.
You see, my mother was at home parenting,
So was mine.
so she took a break from teacher, took a break from teaching, went back to teaching after we, were both school age.
Yeah. When my mum went out to work after a while,
but it was
she
a
got herself a
wonderful-
nice little job. It was seen as unusual.
Yeah, but it was such a wonderful thing to have her there. I mean, I really treasure those years when mum, we were little and mum was at home.
And if you were poorly, there was always mum at home to look after you, when you missed at school.
But being a housewife was seen as a proper, as a proper job.
And
really,
it was a
wasn't
badge of respect of the man of the house as well, that he was looking after his family so that his wife could stay home and look after the family. I know things have changed, but maybe I just think that I understand where you're coming from with Catherine saying the things she's saying, but if she can up the game of the value of parenting in this country, then that would be brilliant.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I agree with that. I had a friend once who she used to get very angry if anyone called her a housewife, because she was. I mean, she wasn't working; she was looking after the daughter. She said, "I'm a homemaker."
Yeah.
I just think, what's wrong with housewife? What's wrong with that as a term?
I don't know. Terribly.
No, I don't.
I think I'd prefer to be a homemaker than a housewife.
I just sort of think, wear it as a badge of honour.
But yes, exactly. It's just how, and that says it all, doesn't it? We've come to see that. A lot of people have come to see that label as wrong, as bad, and it's not a negative. It should be a positive. It was lovely coming home from school and always having your mum there.
Yeah.
And tea was already cooked. Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's difficult to afford to be able to do it now.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, on to politics for you this morning, away from all of that, because Dominic Raab is now being investigated for at least 3 formal complaints over alleged bullying.
He's actually denied all those allegations and insists that he has behaved in line with the ministerial code.
Now, the inquiry was already looking into his behaviour while Justice Secretary and Cabinet Office Minister, but now his time as Brexit Secretary is also under scrutiny.
Well, joining us now is former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Rowley. And a very good morning to you. Thanks very much for coming in.
Morning.
Is his name becoming a little toxic now, do you think, Dominic Raab?
Well, I think it's important to say, as you've identified, that an inquiry is ongoing. He denies all of the allegations, so we'll have to await the findings. It is unfortunate that there is a new complaint that's been added to the 2 that are already being looked into. The 3rd complaint goes back to 2018 when Dominic was the Brexit Secretary, a department that now no longer exists. But so we'll just have to wait those findings. A top QC has been appointed, a top KC, I should say, has been appointed, Adam Tolley, to look into it. And he will get to the bottom of what's actually happened.
But the problem, I was saying earlier on, the problem is this is politics. And so if he's cleared, sort of all well and good in the short term, but it's something sticks, doesn't it? I mean, certainly in the mind of the public, which is probably, it's unfair if that's the case, but that's how these things tend to work.
You're right, and it is incredibly unfair if, for example, if he is cleared of all of the allegations, then it'll be a reputation that he may have. But he's somebody who I know, Dom, sets incredibly high standards, not just of the team that work around him, but he sets incredibly high standards.
You see, that's an interesting phrase in itself, isn't it? When somebody, it's one of those obituary phrases, isn't it? Where you're sort of trying to read between the words. Sets incredibly high standards can mean that's a very laudable thing, or it could mean, yeah, he's very demanding.
And I think that's what the public would expect if you've been the Brexit Secretary at a time where the country was divided, at a time back in 2018 where your viewers will be aware there were lots of reports of simultaneous negotiations taking place, the civil service perhaps wanting a closer relationship with the EU than what ministers were wanting. So there is potential for more pressure to be in that role there. And similarly, when he was Foreign Secretary, and of course as Deputy Prime Minister, when he actually had to step up to become acting Prime Minister when Boris was
sadly hospitalised because of COVID. He's been in a number of roles where he's had to lead, and therefore it will be incredibly pressurised environments, and therefore, it is absolutely right that when you are delivering for the public, that you do set high standards, and those need to be met by the brilliant civil service that we have.
What about your old boss, Michael Gove? I mean, it's come out that he's looking to cut off £1 million in funding to the Housing Association in Rochdale, where there was this child died because of an ongoing mould issue. I mean, it's an absolute tragic story, and clearly something has gone very wrong. Do you think this is the right move? I mean, withdrawing funding when clearly there is an issue seems a little bit counterintuitive. I mean, do they need carrot or stick here?
Well, I think this is absolutely the right thing to do, and Michael was there in Rochdale only the other day just to see the kind of accommodation that tenants are currently living in. This is clearly a failing organisation. Rochdale Borough-wide Housing Association have not acted in the interests of the tenants that they are there to protect.
How does removing money help the situation?
Well, I think it absolutely shines the light on them as a case, and it actually puts everybody on notice to make it absolutely clear that if you're applying for more funding, if you're expecting more funding from central government, this is taxpayers' money.
But so Michael Gove wanted the CEO, was it, to resign, and he hasn't done. So there's obviously a bit of a personal, well, not a personal row, but maybe this is trying to force the issue.
Well, I think you're absolutely right that Gareth Swarbrick, who was the board director of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing, has now gone. He has gone. It took him a while to go. Yeah. He wasn't prepared to leave. He thought he could lead the organisation through the crisis that is currently engulfed them. But no organisation can expect additional funding if it can't look after the current tenants that they are there to support. And it was the family of poor Alb who raised the complaint numerous times of mould being in the house. They noticed that their poor child had developed a respiratory condition because of it, and nothing was done. So it is absolutely right to make it perfectly clear to any housing authority, housing association or local authority, if you're not protecting tenants or protecting people who you are there to look after, you can't expect a single penny more going from central government to those organisations, and central government will be watching very closely the actions that these individuals and organisations take.
So until it gets its act together, that's the incentive, get your act together, and then there's potentially more money on the table.
Totally. And I think that is the right approach, because I think everybody recognises in the economic conditions that we find ourselves in, central government can't do everything. It is not responsible for micromanaging all public services. Lots of things are devolved to local authorities or to charities or to housing associations in this case. So everybody has a responsibility to look after people that are in their care in this case, and they should absolutely do that to the highest of standards.
Okay. Charlie, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
OK, at 7:27, do stick with us. There's more to come, including if the Oscars could lose the Best Actor and Best Actress category and go gender neutral.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online, this is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
It's 7:31. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Stephanie Tetchy, who's here, was just saying, how old is the world's oldest cat? Because we're going to be meeting them a little bit later on. 26.
Oh. Nearly 27.
Nearly
what a vintage cat that is.
She looks fine on it as well. She's a lovely looking cat.
Oh, I'll tell you what, though, Steve's been in touch. And says, our cat Salem is 17 on Monday, which is actually a very good age for a cat. He says, we're taking him to the vets to be put to sleep because he has heart and kidney failure and has been very poorly.
I hope he's not watching.
Oh, Steve, I'm so sorry. I mean, that's an awful... I mean, it's probably the right thing to do, but it's awful, isn't it? I hate it.
Yeah, but this cat we're talking about, what's she called again?
Flossie.
Flossie.
Oh,
she's 26, going on 27, and we're going to be meeting her a bit later on in the programme. If you've got a cat or a dog, actually, who's getting on a bit, tell us their story and maybe send us your pictures, please. It'd be lovely to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Yes. Anyway, let's kick straight back with Stephanie. Because there's calls now for gender-neutral categories at the Oscars. I think that sounds like a bit of a loaded term because how many actresses have we all met over the years who say, please call me an actor.
Yeah.
I'm an actor. So this actually isn't as controversial as it sounds, is it?
I think it is controversial because on the flip side of that, well, let me give you some context into the story first. It's Emma Corrin, who's well known for playing Princess Diana in season 4 of The Crown. Her latest role in theatre will see her playing Orlando, Virginia Woolf's Orlando at Garrick's Theatre in London. And she's going to be playing a man who's turned into a woman, and she's been doing her latest promo run and she's been calling for awards such as the Oscars and the BAFTAs to merge Best Female, Best Actress and Best Actor all into one, gender-free, and so they could just be acknowledged for the role and not their gender. The reason why it is controversial, I think, personally, is because you've had lots of actresses who have been fighting for equality in the industry, that they can be recognised as actresses, and now she's saying, let's merge them all into one category. And I don't think that's fair either to actors or actresses themselves.
No, I mean, I take Stephen's point completely that why not just call them actors? Except when you come to the Oscars or something, if you've only got one category then that's Best Actor, and that is for all men and all women and everybody else in between and all the rest of it, that just narrows the awards down a bit, doesn't it, actually?
It does, but we've seen other awards such as the Grammys and the MTV Movie Awards, and the Brits this year, they got rid of their gendered categories. And, you know, when Adele was accepting her award, she was like, I still love being a woman and I want to be reflected for that and being accepted for that. And the problem I have with Emma Corrin's statements is that she's then said in an interview today in The Telegraph, but I'll still be happy to accept a Best Female award, a Best Actress award. So I'm thinking, why not boycott the awards then? If you're really so adamant that they should be gender-free, why are you still happy to accept Best Actress when there's actually actresses out there who want to be known for that?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's a very difficult one,
It is.
Because you always sense that the word actress, and I can understand that, is somehow slightly less than Best Actor, isn't it? And even in the way they do the ceremonies, they always do the actress first, don't they? And the actor is only...
the bigger award.
It seems a much bigger award. And in Hollywood, the actors, the headline actors get more money than the headline women,
They do. And those are the bigger, I think, issues in the industry, rather than, I think, personally, between how people are being notified in the award categories. But BAFTAs and Oscars, they are paying attention and they are saying...
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you have an LGBTQ plus whatever actor who wins or who's up for an award for playing an LGBT type person, it seems wrong that they should have to be either an actor or an actress.
Well, this is the big issue, which I do agree with Emma on, because she's saying it's not just about the awards, it's about the roles that are available for LGBTQ plus people, and also them actually being highlighted and recognised in such ceremonies. So I think maybe an extra category needs to be introduced to reflect how they see their gender and how they perceive their work. But BAFTAs and Oscars have said they are paying attention to what is being said and they are having discussions about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if by January we hear there's been a new category or all the categories have been merged into one.
I just find it really interesting because it's, as you said, I think you raise a really valid point, and it halves the opportunities for people to win. Right, which is fair enough. But it's things like because we use the term gender neutral, it suddenly becomes controversial.
It does.
Whereas things like we used to have WPCs.
Yes.
What's WPCs?
A women police
officer. Constable. Yeah.
And that
went years ago.
We used to have WAFs in the RAF.
And all that went
now.
so that they're just police
and that's
officers
right, I think.
and all that. Yeah. So it's like it's been happening for decades and decades. All of a sudden, it's like a hot potato.
It is. I just think, I don't know, for me, I just think when it comes to the acting worlds, I think especially for actresses who've been campaigning so long for equality, I feel their identity will be diminished if it's one category. It's like the men might end up winning more and then they won't have
they possibly would. And they the strength of the parts that are available for men. They possibly would, and that would be very sad. And as you say, if you're building a career, to have won an Oscar makes your career, doesn't it? But the chances of winning that Oscar are halved because now it's just one award.
I just think the bigger talking point is about the roles that are available for LGBTQ+, and also how we are going to reflect them in such award shows. But I do feel like there has to be those separate categories. And that's all in my opinion.
Yeah, well, which is valid. We like all opinions here. Maybe talking of genders and things, though, Carl, because I know you like your sport. Carl's been in touch saying the football last night, the men's team, England, I presume. Oh, yeah. The men's team can take a lesson or two from the England ladies' team.
Yes.
The ladies attack non-stop while our men's team just play with the ball. Cut their wages.
Oh, my gosh, I was so depressed last night watching that match. I was like, I could be doing something else. And, I've interviewed some of the ladies from the football team, Leah Williamson recently, and she was like, as long as the boys do their best on the pitch, then they should be proud. But watching last night, I don't think they are performing at their best. But I can imagine they're under immense pressure, but hopefully they pull out the bag for the win with Wales. Yeah.
You can but hope. Mike says, why do all the news channels assume that the whole country are football fans? We're not. We've had enough. How about some rugby union?
Well, no, I mean,
I've only just got my head around World Cup.
I mean, we're not football fans, are we? But nevertheless, you sort of, when the big competitions like this, I mean, even I watched the football last night. I mean even...
Yeah, but I tuned in expecting a win,
Yeah.
Not expecting a lot of draw. A few goals would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I went home last night and was planning what I was going to do with my lottery win, because I was going to win the Euro Millions last night, 67 million quid.
What happened?
I planned it all out. Haven't had the phone call yet.
Would you have been here today?
No,
you got the phone call.
Yeah, I would have done.
Would you?
Yeah. What is one?
Yeah. We've been talking about the age of pets, because, Stephanie, you were asking about how old is the oldest cat that we're going to be meeting later on. She's 26, knocking 27. And we've had some lovely pictures from you. Thank you so much. Rachel in Kansas City in the US says, we just got a 14-week-old puppy. A Boston Terrier female. She requires a lot of attention and energy, but she's smart and agreeable. I love her. She's gorgeous.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you for watching us all the way in Kansas.
Yeah, brilliant.
Just click your heels 3 times to go home and all that sort
yeah.
of thing. Barbara, morning, Barbara. We're watching you from northern France. Our little boy, Benji.
It's the
cutest
cutest little thing. It's a bit like Ellie. Is it Bichon or is he a something poo? You know, a snitter, I don't know, can't keep up with the breeds nowadays, but he's, if you're listening on the radio, he's sort of white and fluffy, basically.
Oh, yeah. And he's 15 in April.
Oh,
That's very old for a little dog, isn't it? Apart from his eyesight, he's in good health and is so special.
And Marty Joe says, forget the cats. We've got a house rabbit. Oh, this is a house rabbit. It's a dwarf lion head, lived to be 14. He was totally house-trained, used cat litter and a foam cat house with hay for his bed and was regarded as a family member. Totally gutted when he finally developed a tumour. And sadly, he's no longer with us.
Oh,
but he lived to a ripe old age.
Ripe old age.
They leave little pellets all over the house rabbits.
Well, no, if he uses the litter tray.
They can be trained to use a litter tray properly. Well,
Liz says, my last cat lived to be 23 and was a real character. She adopted us at the age of 5. She was a ginger female, absolutely gorgeous. Our replacement cat was adopted from a rescue centre at aged 18 months and is now 11.
Brilliant. Yeah, you don't always know their age when you get them from a rescue centre.
No.
Don't know their precise age.
No.
But you took Timmy along to the vet and he had a look at his teeth.
Well, yes, yeah, because he's a rescue cat, and they said, oh, he's 4. It wasn't like we think he's... He's 4.
How old is he now?
Well, it'll be 14, 15.
He's doing well, too, then.
Oh, he's very sprightly.
He's very sleek and svelte, actually.
He's very well looked after.
Well, I can
imagine.
Spot on. They get better health care than we do.
Oh, yes.
I tell you. Bit of a sniffle, straight down the vet, same day.
Oh.
You know, if only we could do that, eh?
If you've got some pictures of your pets to share, particularly if they're getting very, very old or maybe very, very young, we'd love to see them. Please do get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Paper's heading away in just a couple of minutes, so don't go anywhere.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Morning. Welcome back. It's
Not
very,
swine.
very nearly, if I keep talking, it will be actually 7:45. A very good morning to you. You're listening and watching Breakfast here on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
Let's go through the papers this morning with journalist Ella Whelan and Christopher Biggins, who's joining us just before
He's getting ready
Panto
for
season.
Panto. Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes, I am.
Absolutely.
I'm off tomorrow.
Are you?
Oh, are you?
Yeah, to Darlington.
What, rehearsals?
Yeah, we start rehearsal on Monday. I prefer to rehearse away from London because too many distractions.
Yeah. And who are you this year?
I'm Mrs. Smee in Peter Pan.
Oh, no.
Very good.
Oh, tickets available online.
Wait, when you do... no, I've got to know that. When you do Panto every year, do you just have a wardrobe you can go to now of Christopher Biggin outfits?
Yes.
You do now?
I do.
So you have a staple wardrobe?
I do, and I used to have it in my loft, and then it got ridiculous because the loft got so full I couldn't have anything else in it.
They're big frocks.
They're big frocks.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's what's great at it, because I know a designer likes to have big people show off their costumes. And I mean, in this pantomime, for instance, in the finale, when I come down, I'm flying in as a chandelier.
Oh, goodness.
And it's a most wonderful costume.
You are the chandelier?
I'm the chandelier, yeah.
Oh, we have to see a picture of this.
I'll send you one.
Yeah. But you must have to have an entire house or stable block or something.
Yeah, well, I work for a company called Crossroads, and they have a huge wardrobe store.
Wow.
Because they do hundreds of pantomimes.
Oh, one day I want to come see one of those.
I know.
Is it
Motel? No, it's a terrible name, isn't it? Americans bought the company and they decided to call it Crossroads.
They wouldn't have understood the...
No, not at all.
Oh, well.
Anyway, look, let's crack on with the papers. Ella, looking at the Times. Stop tweeting and get on with the job.
Yes, this is to do with the police force and quotes from Stephen Watson, who's the Chief Constable in Greater Manchester. Someone who has commanded headlines previously because, I mean, for a very good reason, he turned around the police force in Greater Manchester, who was previously in special measures. He brought them up to scratch within 2 years. He's previously been known for, doing things like cracking down on uniform. He made his police force shave. He got them to hide their tattoos. He's generally someone who is taken a hard line in terms of discipline in order to bring the police force up to scratch. And there has been more prosecutions and less waiting time on 999 calls. And he's now gunning for police officers and forces that spend time on social media, doing things like he's had a pop at a fellow assistant commissioner who wore a menopause vest to understand the menopause better. And he basically is saying, get off Twitter and get back on the streets and do your job. This is, would be very welcome news to most people, because I think a lot of people are annoyed at the fact that police officers spend so much time
in a
quote unquote
vest.
Virtue signalling is the phrase. But I think the interesting thing is, actually, by law, police officers are being told to spend time online increasingly, because if you have things like the online safety bill, or if you have legislation being brought out that says that certain things online are illegal, whether that's trolling or talking to politicians in a certain way on Twitter and all that kind of stuff, police officers are going to be expected to be sat on their phones looking at what you're tweeting about.
You've got to prioritise.
Of course, you've got to prioritise, but I think it's you know, there's only so much that someone like Stephen Watson can say, and in actual fact, you have to look at what politicians are doing, who are kind of forcing police officers into the online world by saying that if you tweet, you know, something nasty at someone, then you should have a knock on your door from a police officer. But in general, I think he's absolutely right that there's a kind of laziness in terms of police officers wanting to look good on social media and look like they're doing the job. And in actual fact, the hard job of catching criminals and, you know, to use that cliche, is sort of less on their priority list.
I mean, interesting. What's a menopause coat or whatever you said?
It mimics the idea of overheating.
So it's heated. It's a heated thing.
It's a heated thing. I think it's got other things as well. It sort of mimics the idea of the general discomfort that a lot of women go through.
Really?
So that they can understand the impact it has on you. It's not just a question of thinking, oh, I'm feeling a bit, you know, hot and dizzy. It's actually something that wears you down through the day at certain times and things. And it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But for the police to be spending time when I think we'd probably all much prefer that
They were on
they're
the
out
streets.
on the streets catching criminals.
Yes, in an ordinary outfit.
It's a difficult one to weigh out.
And also, it's, you know, why do you have to know? Why do you have to physically feel how bad it is? Believe me, I'm telling you it's bad. So do something about it.
Exactly, that's enough.
Well, it should be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. Look, we are actually a little bit time for time. So I've got to go to this, just in case we don't get a chance to otherwise. It's in the Mail, Christopher. Would you Adam and Eve it? The nudist night.
Well, I mean, this is a hysterical story. I mean, this is Would You Adam and Eve it, as you just said, and it's a pub acts as the nudist night by fears that motorists may be distracted by looking through the windows and seeing naked men and women. So they've been told they can't have it anymore. So, I mean, this is the Swan Inn. And it's hysterical. Keith Hiller Palmer, who's a naturist, is in a terrible state because they had to cancel the whole thing.
He's getting his knickers in a twist.
You've been working on that one for hours. It's at the Swan Inn in Sandhurst in Kent.
Yes.
They were going to have this naturist night, and there's a picture of a previous one, I think, there. And they're worried. Why don't they just draw the curtains?
Frost the windows or something.
Exactly.
But apparently, I think people in the parish council and some other people have moaned about it a bit.
Well, why shouldn't they? I mean, I think it's terrible. If they want to go and sit at a pub and the pub is happy for them to sit there and have dinner, they shouldn't, whatever they want to wear.
And the pub owner has said we had a hard enough time during lockdown and during the worst of the pandemic, trying to get more, things going and more events going.
Yes.
Why should we have to cancel this one?
Exactly. I think it's a great shame. But anyway, I'm sure they'll find somewhere else.
Well, why don't they just draw the curtains? Then the motorists wouldn't even see.
No, and tickets were £17 to £30, depending on how many courses guests wanted. That's interesting, isn't it?
Mind you, I don't understand naturists. I don't understand why would you want to go to the pub for an evening wearing nothing.
No, I know.
Especially if you're eating a hot meal. I mean, that's an accident waiting to happen.
And dribbling.
I don't get the appeal of it, though. Why?
I just sort of
I don't think there's anything wrong with the human body, but I just don't get the appeal of...
No, it's not for me.
Well, no, I don't know. It's not for me either. But I'm with you, though. I'm just thinking, well, why... If you want to do it...
Absolutely.
And they keep saying, there's nothing sexual about
it.
Oh,
absolutely.
It's not that sort of a night. It's just people just feel the need to be free of their outfits. Well, why not?
They also belong to a naturist rambling society called the Stark Trekkers.
Perfect. You see, they deserve to keep going just for that.
Just for that, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely fabulous. We've got 1.5 minutes.
Pick a good one then. What have we got?
Oh, I tell you what, should we do a bit of football? Did you watch football last night?
No. No, I'm in bed by 8 o'clock these days.
There was no need to, anyway, believe me.
Actually, the only thing I don't like football at all, but I did love the Lionesses. And, of course, in the jungle, we do have a lioness who I hope will win.
Oh, that's right, of course.
Because she is fantastic.
You're watching at the moment?
Yeah, I am. I mean, she is wonderful. She is really...
Why?
Because she is funny, she's very bright, she's absolutely goes for every trial. And she's the bookies' favourite, which I'm pleased to say, and I think she's just been the best.
And how's our politician doing?
Well,
He's still in there, isn't he?
He's doing well, you see. I mean, you know, and they're saying in all the papers today, you know, he won't win it. I hope he won't win it, but he will have regenerated his career.
Is that what happens? I mean, you won it.
Oh, my God.
What did it do for your career?
Oh, unbelievable things. I mean, you know, money goes up hugely.
Oh, really?
Pantomime fees, you know, everything else, and you're wanted. And still, to this day, people come up to me and say, we just laughed so much when you slept with 200 rats.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's a high price to pay, I must say.
It is, but I absolutely loved it.
You were
I must
game
say.
for it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Right, Ella, Christopher, thank you both
Thank you
very
very
much
much.
indeed. We shall see you a little bit later on. We have got much more to come for you, including England fans reacting to that 0-0 draw against the USA last night. First, though, here's your weather.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It is a dry start out there for many of us, but more wet and windy weather will soon be on the way. However, it is the last bout of Atlantic weather before change arrives next week. For the time being, a brief ridge of high pressure has affected us during the last 24 hours, but weather fronts are knocking on the door. Those weather fronts are spilling in from the west. Ahead of them, some clear spells, some sunshine first thing for parts of central and eastern England. A chill in the air here, a few mist patches. Further west, it's been a mild start. We've got the wind and rain pushing into Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, Western England and Wales by the afternoon. That rain initially light and patchy, it turns heavier and more persistent later, driven in by gale force winds around coastal areas. However, those winds are coming from the south, so 12, 13, perhaps even 14 or 15 degrees is possible. In East Anglia in the southeast, it's a bright afternoon, but the cloud will be thickening and the rain arrives here during the evening. Likewise for northern Scotland, the rain on and off through the day, but the more persistent stuff arrives during the evening. Could cause some issues for central parts of Scotland because of the very soggy weather that we've seen recently. The rain lingering there through the night for East Anglia in the southeast, but elsewhere it does clear. And with clear spells arriving by dawn, well, it looks like there'll be some showers in the northwest, but otherwise a bright start for many on Sunday. I don't think it'll be a frosty start. There'll be too much cloud and enough of a breeze to prevent that. And we've still got those outbreaks of rain on and off for East Anglia in the southeast during Sunday morning, perhaps turning heavier and persistent, more persistent again into the afternoon. Brighter conditions elsewhere, still quite a few showers for parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales, but otherwise some high cloud and largely dry and bright weather. 12, 13 Celsius still possible and a less windy day, certainly. Now into the start of next week, there'll still be a few showers around, especially for western parts on Monday, but overall there is a trend towards drier weather.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
A goalless draw for England and a disappointing loss for Wales.
Good morning. Unless you're a football fan. It's 8 o'clock on Saturday, the 26th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, your radio and online right across the world. So whatever you're up to today, you can take us with you. These are your top stories.
Well, the Three Lions failed to score in their second World Cup match against the USA last night as the manager, Gareth Southgate, braces for their next clash, which is against Wales next week. They've got to beat England in order to make it through to the next stage after suffering that 2-0 loss to Iran.
An investigation into Dominic Raab's behaviour has been expanded after a third formal complaint. Rishi Sunak says he still has confidence in his deputy. Mr Raab denying all the allegations, insisting that he's behaved professionally at all times.
And an increase in sales despite the cost of living crisis. We'll look back on Black Friday and look ahead to Cyber Monday.
And we'd love to hear from you this morning. Particularly, we're talking about animals, believe it or not, because we're going to be meeting the world's oldest cat at about 9:45 this morning. She's 26 years old. So if you've got an aged pet, much loved and well looked after, we'd love to hear from you.
Cat, dog or rabbit? We've had a rabbit
We've had
on
a
already.
rabbit on, indeed.
Do send us a picture.
GBViews at gbnews.uk. Well, I mean, I was going to say I had a late night last night. However, I could have snoozed through most of it.
Yeah, you really could have.
It was described as a snooze fest for England fans last night. 0-0 with the USA, as you will know. Meanwhile, of course, earlier in the day, Welsh hearts were broken as they conceded 2 late goals to Iran.
That was unbelievable, actually. We're joined in the studio now by sports broadcaster Aidan McGee. I don't know, where do you start? I was watching the Welsh one, obviously, earlier.
Yeah, let's start with
I
them.
nearly missed the 2 goals that almost happened in the last minute.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it was totally unnecessary, Anne. I mean, just take the point. You know, you're going towards the end of the game. It was such an unnecessary foul as well by Wayne Hennessy. which caused him to be sent off. I can't believe he was given a booking originally. I mean, I don't know what planet that wasn't a red card. But if they'd gone into the England game next Tuesday with 2 points, unbeaten, it would have done so much more for morale. Yes, they felt that the onus was on them to beat Iran yesterday, but that was a lack of tournament experience there, I think. The big players didn't play well anyway. They didn't play that well in the first game against the USA. But if you then go into that third game with 2 points, anything can happen.
And they were. I just felt that, because I keep saying this, but I thought the heat had got to them or something, because a lot of them were just standing around on the pitch waiting for the ball to come to them. There was no real effort going into it.
No, but but you have to appreciate as well, it's an endurance test. Yeah. Sometimes these players are just, I mean, a week and a half ago, they're all playing in the domestic leagues. In a normal World Cup, you'd probably get about at least a 2-week lead up until the tournament starts. I do think fatigue will come into it irrespective of the heat.
There's no excuse there. They shouldn't look fatigued.
No, they shouldn't. I mean, I thought some of the England players looked a little bit, I don't know, it's almost like they'd done the hard work in the first game and they thought this result would just happen, but that's not the case.
Well, I'll tell you what, as 9-year-old Rio was saying in the last hour, well, the problem with England is that some of their players are really old.
Is that what he said? I didn't
No,
hear
was it not say the Wales? Was it not about the Wales players?
No, that was about the England. That was about England. He says they're really old, but compared to the USA team, they are.
Yes, they are. But then the USA have got good players. You know, we think of newcomers to football might think, oh, USA, what do they know about football? You know, we taught them the game years ago. But over a 20-year period, as Eric Winalda said a couple of hours ago, they are improving. They've got a Juventus player, they've got an AC Milan player, they've got a Chelsea player, an Arsenal player, a Fulham player, a Leeds player. So they've got good players in there who will trouble us at any time of day. And don't forget, these players, and they're playing for their country. One thing I learned about going around Africa for the various editions of the Africa Cup of Nations years ago is how much, sometimes outside of the UK, it matters for players to play for their country. Now, this was the problem when English clubs used to sign African players. They loved the fact that they took care of themselves and they were fiercely dedicated to their profession. They just couldn't handle the fact that they wanted to play for Ivory Coast or they wanted to play for Ghana at certain times of the year when they'd lose them. And that was in an era when England players didn't really like to turn up for international matches. At least now we've got committed players. Consider the last tournament as well, a draw against Scotland in the second game, having won the first one. England still got to the final. It's nothing to worry about. The aim is to get out of the group stage.
But even the Wags found it boring.
Yeah, they did. I think an agency photographer must have had a field day yesterday because that picture
of field... Not just the Mirror, but it's also the Sun saying the same thing. Yawn in the USA.
Well, that could be jet lag. I don't know when they arrived.
Or maybe there was a big party the night before.
Yeah, or maybe the game was just, as you say, really boring. But look, the aim is to get out of the groups. I mean, say England were going to go all the way here and win the thing, even if they win the thing, no one's going to be talking about what happened in the group stage. It'll be how they performed in the knockout stage. They have to go some. They have to really, really slip up on Tuesday to be knocked out of the tournament. They have to lose by 4-0 against Wales. I do think it's still open slightly for Wales. I think that England, knowing that they've qualified, may well just take the foot off the gas a little bit, maybe even rest a couple of players. But then it's called the group of death for a reason, because going into the last game, all 4 teams can potentially qualify. How will Iran feel yesterday? You know, 6-2 against England in the first game, then they go and beat Wales, all to play for in that last game against the USA.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Aidan, well, you just stay there for a minute, because let's talk to an England fan who's travelled out to Qatar, Al-Kasali, who's from Scarborough, good old Scarborough in North Yorkshire. Al, it's really good to see you this morning. What do you make of it all? I mean, were you disappointed in the performance last night, or are you just relieved that we got a point?
Good morning to you from Qatar. Yeah, slightly disappointed, but it was a lethargic performance. But I think the important thing is we've probably had one of our worst games, but we've got through. We'll probably get 4 points. We've got 4 points now. We've got Wales. It's mathematically we're going to go through the next round. Hopefully they'll perform again, and we'll get good results on the knockout stages. In terms of atmosphere, it's been fantastic. The welcome has been brilliant in Qatar. Everything that we've needed as a supporter, as a fan of football, was provided for us. So hospitality is second to none. All we now need is England to perform well and get us through to the latter stages of the final.
What did you think of the fact that some of the stadium booed the players as they came off?
Look, I think the expectations is very high from the England supporters. We have to understand that we're not the only one. Argentina got beat by Saudi Arabia. These are results that happen. This is the World Cup. None of the teams are a walkover anymore. So hopefully, you know, we've had a bit of a sluggish start with the USA game, and we've got one of our worst games over, and hopefully they'll tighten up again and play the football that we know that they can. So it's not a surprise. I think we need to be patient. So hopefully, yeah, the worst performance I think of probably the tournament's over. So we just need to be, as supporters, we need to support them. We need to support them. You know, if they're playing bad, we need to encourage them to play well. I don't think booing is the way forward.
No, it's interesting. You're a glasses half full sort of man, which is good. But I noticed, talking about being disappointed in players, you're wearing a Man United top. What do you make of Ronaldo?
Well, listen, we've all got our weaknesses. Man United is mine. So I'm not going to comment on Ronaldo. He's been a good servant to Man United. And hopefully, you know, we'll forget this episode and we'll still carry on supporting him.
Where are you at the moment? We can see that things are quite busy and there are people behind you.
It's very quiet. I'm on a busy roadside here. So I've got some people who are watching you. They're intrigued. I'm actually at Al Wakar area. We're at Al Janoub, which is probably the furthest away from all the stadiums. But the transportation here has been so good. We've not, you know, realised how far we are. We get free transport into the stadiums. We get free metro wherever we want. If you've got luggages with you when you come into the fan zone or fan accommodation area, you get free taxis. So the Qataris are doing their bit. There are obviously certain issues, but I certainly don't want to get involved in political issues. I would like to concentrate on the football, and hopefully England will do well, and football will come back home.
Are you going to stay out for the duration?
I'm here for the next 10 days, and then we'll see if England progress. I'll probably go back to UK and then come back again for the final.
Oh, gosh.
Well, look, really good to see you this morning. You better talk to your fan base behind you now and tell them what's going on.
They're all intrigued in what's going on.
Oh.
So, yeah, all the best, and thanks for speaking, and we'll catch up.
Yeah,
brilliant,
look forward to it. We'll catch up.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye from sunny Qatar.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Indeed.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Aidan, what do you reckon? I mean, I like the fact he is glass half full.
Yes. Well, why wouldn't he be? I mean, this is four points from 2 games. As I say, no one really remembers what happens in the group stage. I'm just wary of this thing, football's coming home, because too many times it's come home but forgotten the front door key.
No.
So nearly there
I know.
sometimes.
I know.
Oh, brilliant. Aidan, thank you.
It's nice to see a real fan enjoying himself out there, though, and it does sound as though they're having a good
Great,
time.
Loving it, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And his fans.
Do you know, time was when you used to point a camera at somebody, and if they weren't already a professional television person, they would be a bit befuddled.
Absolutely free.
Well, it was a good way, and being out in the field is a good way to shut someone up, isn't it? If they're talking away and being a nuisance, put the microphone in front of them, and suddenly they're not as confident.
But it's just not like that anymore. Everybody's got a view, everybody's got an opinion, and everybody's telly-savvy, aren't they?
Well, everyone's used to, you know, Duo or FaceTime or whatever.
Or Zoom or whatever. We were all doing it during the lockdown, I suppose. We've all got used to it. But anyway, that was great.
Certainly
great to
a
see
pro.
him.
Yeah.
Well done, Al Kasali.
Now, let's bring you up to date with the rest of the day's stories, should we? At 11 minutes past 8, and over 250 social housing tenants are meeting later on for the launch of an official resident-led panel to improve unsafe conditions. The Housing Secretary wants to end tenants being denied a proper voice. Michael Gove is cracking down on unsafe social housing conditions after 2-year-old Awab Ishaq died from a respiratory condition linked to prolonged exposure to mould.
Meanwhile, rail strikes continue today with more travel disruption expected. Members of ASLEF across 11 train operators are going to walk out in a dispute over pay, meaning a significantly reduced service today.
The Princess of Wales says not enough is being done to recognise the importance of early childhood. Writing in The Telegraph today, she says, research shows early years have an influence on our ability to form relationships, succeed at work and our health. She says people need to focus on nurturing children to help them better deal with society later in life.
And the Met Office has issued yellow weather warnings for rain in parts of southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in England and Wales will come into force at 2 o'clock and will stay in place until 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. Forecasters say there will be disruption to travel as a result. It's interesting what we were saying about parenting earlier on the programme, because the Princess of Wales is now being very outspoken about the need and the importance of basically nurturing our children. Marguerite has got in touch. Hi, Marguerite. She says, Anna, Stephen, you are so right with everything you said about parenting. Today's society has got it completely wrong in every aspect, both parents needing to work and no time to concentrate on bringing up the kids. Too much responsibility put on teachers, families not sitting together at the table for home-cooked meals.
Yeah.
It goes on.
Yeah, you see, we always sat down together and we always had a Sunday lunch and all that sort of thing, and it was just family, proper family time. Anne says, I was lucky enough to be able to stay at home with my 2 boys. When asked at parties what my work was, I used to say, I guarantee I work harder than anyone with longer hours. I just don't get a salary. Best job I ever had.
Robin says, because of my dad's job, he could only be at home for around 2 weeks every year. So my mum stayed home and looked after me full-time until I was 18. She made my life much easier compared with friends of the same age, and she sacrificed so much for me. Since I went to university, she's started working again in a pharmacy, long hours and no weekends at all. But she is still happy to be able to go out and speak to people.
It's getting the balance right, isn't it? But as I say, I think the issue is for a lot of people now, it's like they can't afford not to have 2 people working in the household.
That's the problem, I think. It's one of the major causes of the problems. Diane in York says a lot of parents today have more interest in their mobile phones than they do in their children.
You see, I think that in some respects, Diane, is a bit of a cynical view. But
but you see it.
I have seen it.
You
Dads often, I've seen, and it's like the child is just being completely left on their
pushing
own.
the children in the pushchair and on the mobile phone while they're walking down the pavement. Yeah. And it happened a lot last time I went to Disney World, which was quite a while ago now. But, you save up money and you're going to give your kids this dream holiday in Disney World, meeting Mickey Mouse and things. And what are they doing? They're all on their mobile phones.
Yeah.
Instead of enjoying the moment.
Doesn't seem right.
No, it's funny, actually, in Giles Brandreth's new book, which is just out in fact, it's not out until a couple of weeks' time. I think it's about the Queen. He was saying how she very much prided herself on being able to use modern technology. We know she was very good at doing Zoom calls, don't we? And having tablets and various bits of new technology in the house. But and all of her grandchildren and children all had their own mobile phones. But she did make the one rule, is when we sit down to have lunch together or dinner together, no mobile phones at the table, and that's probably a very good thing.
She's probably the only she's probably the only matriarch in the country who was able to absolutely say that and be absolutely obeyed.
There would be no crossing with that, would there?
No, but I do think it's a fair point. We've got to get back to it. It's what we did during lockdown. Now, whether you like lockdown or not, or agree with it or not, I should say. One of the things we did get back to sort of family. It was a bit like living in the 70s again.
Yes, it was. We did it by Zoom, but we did quizzes and things like that.
Yeah.
It was such fun. And of course, what happened is, as soon as the lockdown restrictions eased, we stopped doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's. And if I said to the rest of the family now, let's get together on a Sunday evening at 7 o'clock and do, a game of so and so, they'd all go, "No, I'm doing so and so," wouldn't they?
I know.
Shame.
I thought we may have stuck with that a little bit.
But we didn't long, did we?
No, afraid not. But anyway, let us know what you think about all of that. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
Now, back to politics, and Dominic Raab is being investigated now for at least 3 formal complaints over alleged bullying. He has denied all the allegations and insists he has behaved in line with the ministerial code.
Now, the inquiry was already looking into his behaviour while he was Justice Secretary and Cabinet Office Minister, but now his time as Brexit Secretary is also under scrutiny.
Well, joining us now is the political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. Morning, Kevin. It's not just a question now of whether he will be, there'll be an investigation, and even if he is found squeaky clean, isn't his name still becoming toxic?
Well, yeah, and I think the main problem for Rishi Sunak in particular, and Dominic Raab obviously, is that these complaints keep coming. I think there will probably be more. There's already been reported, I think, in The Guardian that several civil servants are willing to come forward with more complaints about his previous record in different departments. So it is almost like it's been coordinated, that you've had the initial 2 complaints, the other one yesterday, and as I say, I think there'll be more. And I think each time it just ratchets up the pressure on the Prime Minister, who is always then asked, does he have full confidence in Dominic Raab? And the answer is always yes, until he doesn't. And then I think there may well come a breaking point where it might just be easier to cut Dominic Raab loose, at least until the investigation is over. And then if he's cleared, then I'm sure he would come back. And if not, then that would be it for him, basically. So I think it's getting a little bit too close to Sunak's own door, I think, if you're one of his advisors.
I tell you what, Kevin, this just sounds to me like the mid-90s. And, and when a party has been in government for a long time, these things start to surface, not necessarily because they're true or one party is worse than the other, but just because the knives come out for a government that has been in power for a long time, don't they? It's just part of the political cycle. Are we looking at an inevitable decline for the Conservative Party now, just by the very nature of how politics works?
I think there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah, I mean, if you've been in power for as long as the Conservatives have, there's a lot of skeletons in your cupboard. You make a lot of enemies, and those things tend to come back to bite you eventually. And if you look at historically at election results, the British public don't like parties being in power for too long. Every government of whatever colour does have a shelf life, and even when parties appear to be riding high in the opinion polls, as the Conservatives were really not that long ago, maybe 18 months ago, things looked pretty set fair for Boris Johnson. And you know how things have turned out since then. So I think as you say, these things tend to accumulate over the years. And yeah, the mid-90s comparison is obviously a very good one, because at that time as well, Labour seemed to be inevitably heading towards power, which is how the opinion polls certainly look right now.
Meanwhile, can we turn to Scotland? And Nicola Sturgeon has said that she's going to turn the next general election into a de facto referendum on Scottish independence. Will she get away with that?
Well, that remains to be seen. She can certainly try to do it, but the other parties, the pro-union parties like the Conservatives and Labour, they're under no obligation to treat the next election in Scotland in the way that Nicola Sturgeon wants them to. I think it is a huge political gamble that she's taken, and it's not just me saying that. There's a lot of people within the SNP that I've spoken to are also concerned, to put it mildly, that this is a gamble which ultimately will not pay off, and that the net result will be the cause of independence being put back for a very long time indeed. So yeah, she's rather been boxed into a corner by the Supreme Court judgment, which basically said that the Scottish Parliament doesn't have the power to legislate for its own independence referendum. So she said, well, we've got no other option now. The only way we can put it to the people is at the next general election. But, a single issue general election is very unusual. I can't remember one before. And as I say, why would voters just want to vote on one thing when at the moment we've got rising energy bills, rising inflation, interest rates, cost of living crisis? It's almost, you're almost insulting the voters really by telling them you can only vote on one issue when, as I say, in a general election, there's a whole multitude of things that people are casting their vote on.
Well, they've been riding high for a long time when it comes to elections in Scotland. The SNP have done incredibly well. There's no two ways about it. But they've never hit 50% of the vote before. And really, if she's going to have any mandate at all for pushing even further, under her own terms here, she's got to get more than 50% of the vote. Now that, as you say, that's a huge gamble.
It is. I think what they're talking about doing is counting votes for the Scottish Greens, who are also pro-independence. Alex Salmond's party, ALBA, they're obviously pro-independence, so their votes would be counted as well, which is a little bit strange given the ill feeling there is between Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond. So I'm not sure, would they have to share a platform in the election campaign? Can't see that happening somehow. So yeah, you're right. Even when they've been riding high, the SNP themselves have never hit 50%, and that's basically because Scottish politics is still split down the middle. Scottish public opinion is pretty much 50-50 on independence, and even if they were to get over that 50% threshold, there's no obligation then on the UK government to accept what the SNP are saying, and the international community as well probably would want to kind of balk at any suggestion that they might row in behind Scotland against Westminster. So yeah, it would throw up all sorts of constitutional questions, as well as being just, as I say, a huge political gamble.
She's not going to give up, though, is she, by the look of it? She's just not going to stop. Kevin, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Nice to see you.
Oh, if you're north of the border watching today, let us know what you think about that. I just wonder how many people have sort of voted SNP because they think, you know, a Scottish party for Scottish people, which I, you know, understand, but will be then put off by this. I don't know if that. You know, are you absolutely pro-independence if you vote SNP, or are some people a bit more borderline? And if it's treated as a referendum, would that then stop you voting for the SNP if you have before?
I think a general election should be a general election, shouldn't it? And a referendum should be a referendum, and the two should not be sort of melded into each other.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that we don't... There are significant problems in Scotland with healthcare and cost of living and all these sorts of issues that we have in the rest of the UK. But that they don't get, certainly down here, they don't get talked about, because all we talk about is the independence issue, because she keeps it absolutely top of the agenda.
Yes, but they've got a Scottish Parliament to talk about those sort of things, of which she is leader.
Yes, but shouldn't we all be aware of what we view it as people who are not Scottish as just being one issue in Scotland?
Oh, I see. Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like that, we're blinkered by it all.
Well, we are a bit. I mean, there's no doubt there is a divide. But I don't know. I know a lot of people who live in Scotland, and they are very divided over this.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Oh, well.
Lots of people very, very supportive of Nicola Sturgeon, and ever such a lot of people really don't like her at all.
No.
Or what she's doing. They think the reason they've got a lot of problems in Scotland is her fault.
Yeah.
Which you can quite rightfully say. They've been the major party for a long time.
Yeah.
She's been First Minister for a long time.
Well, let us know what you think. GBviews at gbnews.uk. It's a fascinating one, that one. Anyway, we've got much more to come, including how high streets have been reacting to Black Friday.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Do you know what? It's a very bad day for the papers.
Yeah, oh, isn't it? Absolutely.
It's a bad day. You know, all the editors and the headline writers and all that sort of thing. People who do this for a living. Here's the Daily Star for you. It's like a different, interesting picture, but you've still got some yawny people here.
Yeah.
Yawn in the USA.
As is the same on The Sun, Yawn in the USA, showing the wags bored out of their minds. And also The Mirror, Yawn in the USA. That is really unusual to see three front-page headlines exactly the same.
I don't think I've ever seen
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
They normally come up with some different iteration, don't they?
And each one of them must have thought they'd got it right, absolutely uniquely, and they really haven't.
No, but that girl has got on every single page.
She's a famous girlfriend.
Yeah, she's a...
She is.
No,
I'm not. She's Georgina somebody, I think. Let's have a look. She is Georgina Irwin, reserve goalie Aaron Ramsdale's fiancée.
Oh, the reserve goalies.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me. Well, she's not done him any favours.
Well, yeah, but those poor women must have been... They're obviously in a box somewhere, aren't they? And all of these long lenses are probably pointed at them, especially to catch a picture like that.
I wonder if any of them actually like football.
Well, aren't they? All of the wags are on a cruise ship that's sort of just in the dock, isn't it, in Qatar?
Oh.
Yeah, they're all on a huge cruise ship. I think the entire thing is just wags and girlfriends.
Yeah.
Well, wags are girlfriends, aren't they?
Yes.
And maybe they had a big party last night and they were a bit tired.
Maybe. Now, here's something. Should we jump into the unknown? Because our producer keeps saying, we've got a still of gravy, and I've no idea what that means.
Yeah, no, gravy is
What's
in the
gravy?
headlines today.
Gravy.
There you are. We love gravy so much in Britain that we take it on holiday because you know you can never get gravy the way you want it when you're away, and we pour it over salads. And
I don't believe
some
that.
people even drink it as a drink.
No,
But
that's a made-up story.
But having the right gravy is very important, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Because other people don't do gravy the same. Or if you go to a posh restaurant or something and you do have a meal that has the most fabulous gravy, it is really worth commenting on, isn't it?
Yes, but then you go to a posh restaurant, they call it jus.
Jus, yes, true.
Instead of gravy.
Yeah. Now, I know that must be a made-up story. Who would take gravy on holiday with them?
And you're not gonna pour it on your salad. Put
No,
gravy on a
that's odd.
salad. I like my gravy.
I love gravy, especially on roast potatoes.
We went shopping for new plates a couple of years ago. And we found really nice ones. We thought, oh, these are nice, interesting little pattern on. And we both looked at each other and went, there was very flat plates.
Yeah, so gravy would run all over the place.
What would you do with the
Yeah.
gravy?
No, you've got to have a bit of a dip.
You've got to have a dip.
Yeah.
Well, the gravy's going to run off.
Actually, it's interesting talking about that because we are obviously going to be now start to think of Christmas meal, Christmas lunch, and what you do for Christmas lunch and what's the best sort of Christmas lunch. And getting the gravy right is so incredibly important. I like putting a bit, and I know you shouldn't, some people would die on this, but I like vegetarian gravy.
Yes.
But when I've made it, I put in a teaspoon of chopped up mint.
Do you? Yeah. Oh, well,
Is
I've
it that
never tried.
piquancy? It's a
See,
little.
I like an onion gravy because I'm vegetarian
Yeah,
as well.
I like an onion
so
gravy.
onion gravy,
Yeah.
I like. And the instant stuff. I mean, I know it's like, but you can't beat it.
No, it's
And
but,
it's very
but
easy.
that's the point. If you go snobby about that and don't use the instant stuff, it's very difficult to make gravy properly without animal juices.
Jus.
So what is the secret to perfect gravy, please, if you've got the recipe? We'll find a chef who can come in and tell us.
Oh,
We could do a gravy tasting.
Well, as long as it's all veggie.
Yeah.
We have to do veggie.
Well, that's
the
your
veggie
challenge,
special.
isn't it? Yeah.
The veggie special.
But
Um,
you want perfect gravy over crispy roast potatoes.
There's a very famous brand that does gravy that you can probably think of, and they also do a version of Best.
Best?
So their best version, which is more expensive.
Of course.
And comes in a glass jar rather than like a paper carton, paper tube
I
thing.
see.
But the
Ooh,
difference
nice.
is significant.
Okay, well, there you go.
So the best onion
And that's a
gravy.
veggie one?
Yeah.
See, I think you can go have a veggie gravy for everybody. It doesn't have to have meat, do you?
It's
if they've
the,
got meat on their plate, what's it with a veggie gravy over?
Yeah, but it's the brand you're thinking of.
Stowe, yeah, I see. Yeah.
That one.
Other gravies like Oxo are available.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well, let us know what your feelings are. Why we got onto this subject, we don't really know, except that there was a picture of a gravy story. So there you are. It's in today's papers if you want to read more.
Yeah, well, a mirror, I think. It's got me in the mood, though, for
a roast.
Good roast and some Brussels sprouts and forest.
That's why I like an old-fashioned carvery. You know, you go to a hotel with an old-fashioned carvery,
Oh, right, yeah.
where they've got the great big, whatever, but they've also got every other sort of extra that you want, and you can choose. And it's the extras I like. It's all the other things around the edges.
Parsnips.
Yeah, the Brussels, as you said.
Yeah.
The broccoli, the gravy.
I've not had any breakfast, so let's move on.
Okay.
That's whetting my appetite.
Were you shopping yesterday?
I've just checked online. No.
Oh, good.
I
How
didn't
do you
do
have to
any
check
shopping.
online? You couldn't remember whether you've ordered something or not.
Yeah, well, but I'm only ordering little bits and bobs at the minute,
Yeah.
stocking fillers and things. But it was Black Friday yesterday, and of course it goes the whole weekend, doesn't it?
To Cyber Monday on Monday.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're not doing it online, then you'd be heading out to the shops to snap up a bargain in the run-up to Christmas.
Many retailers have apparently been really worried that sales would be down, of course, because everybody's so worried about the cost of living crisis. But Nationwide have revealed that as of midday yesterday, sales were up by more than 7% on last year. Should we catch up with our reporter Jeff Moody, who is at the Affinity Devon outlet in Bideford? Oh, hi there, Jeff. How busy is it? Not very at the moment, by the look of it.
No, it doesn't open here till 9 o'clock, so at the moment it's a bit of a damp squib. I'm still reeling from the concept of putting gravy on your salad. Who on earth does that? That's obscene. But yes, a bit of a damp squib at the moment, but it hasn't been a damp squib this Black Friday. In fact, it's been a huge success. And as you say, a lot of people weren't sure that anything would happen, that it would be that it wouldn't really happen this year. Let me give you some figures to back that up. Barclaycard payments are saying that transactions rose 3.2% on last year, and an all-time Black Friday record was made for the number of transactions per second between midday and 1 p.m. What are people buying? Well, Currys, the electrical giant, has said that most people are buying, as you might expect, energy-efficient products. We all knew that would happen, didn't we? Air fryers. That's been the big sell so far this Black Friday weekend. So a lot of people are going to be cooking their roast potatoes on Christmas Day in an air fryer. I've tried it. It works quite well. My tip, though, is to add a little bit of Marmite to the mix. Put a little bit of Marmite in with your potatoes in the air fat fryer. Crisps them up lovely. That'll make you hungry, Stephen. Footfall was up too on 2021 with no COVID rules, of course, this year for the first time, but still down a little bit on pre-pandemic levels. So the experts are saying this is great news. People are spending. It's very, very good for the economy. It means that things are going in the right direction. It helps to, of course, keep prices down. But some people, maybe they're the Grinches, some people are saying, look, maybe we shouldn't be spending so much money. We shouldn't be buying so many presents at this time of year. But the retailers are saying people are out there spending, and that's great news.
Lovely stuff, Jeff, thank you. We're going to leave you to, as soon as that shop opens, go and buy a new microphone.
Yeah, so,
Get a good deal on it, because that one's a bit crackly.
Something was going very funny there.
But anyway, good to see you. Yes, you would Got to buy a new mic cable.
Yeah, something's gone wrong there. It was buzzing a lot, wasn't it?
Buzzing a lot.
Sorry about that. But anyway, the place doesn't open until 9 o'clock.
Yes.
Maybe it'll get busy then. Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is the day for buying a Christmas tree.
Oh, is it?
Or no, I think it may be the day today for going out and buying it, but tomorrow is the day to put it in your living room and start adorning it.
See, we're buying Christmas tree this morning, but we'll be putting it up today.
Oh, really?
Straight up.
Get the job done. Get the job done.
Not messing about.
Okay.
Well, you've got to cut an inch off the
It's
bottom.
clearly the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, at my local Christmas tree place, they will actually do that beautifully with a thingy saw.
Oh, do they?
And so they give you a perfect flat base.
Ah.
So you could almost just stand it on its own. Yeah.
Oh.
Brilliant.
Oh,
but then
maybe
it'll go into a proper Christmas tree holder.
Yeah, and a bucket of water. Yeah.
Which I always forget, but there you go. Oh, well, Christmas is coming. You can't get away from it.
Which is the best one to hold its needles, though? That's the thing. Which
sprucey fur thing. Well, you have to ask, don't you?
You have to ask. Nordic, and there's a Nordend. And
when there are blue Nordics and blue furs, and there's a whole... Yes, it gets complicated. But they'll usually advise you. I'm sure you'll make the right choice.
We try our best. We've got the papers heading away in just a moment with Biggins and Ella Wheeler.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narinda.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
It's 8:42. Good morning. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Breakfast.
I'm trying to be exotic, you see, because Dickens is in.
And also,
Showbiz.
according to Giles Brander's latest book about the Queen, the one thing she really did complain about all the time was that people on television don't enunciate properly like what they used to.
Quite right, too.
So we will try and enunciate for you.
Yes.
Yes, we shall. And so, to take us through the papers this morning is the journalist Ella Whelan and actor Christopher Biggins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good day.
I'm happy to see you.
Yes.
Ella,
nice.
let's kick off. Nice. Let's kick off with The Guardian, should we? And Iran yesterday paying lip service to the national anthem.
Yes, well, so they were not enunciating and were not doing like that and mumbling because, obviously, you know, in their first game they made a very strong show of protest.
Risking their lives, actually.
Very serious. Very, you know, at the same time as you're kind of listening to England team, Welsh team saying, will we wear an armband? Won't we wear an armband? We will, but only if we don't get a yellow card and blah, blah, blah. You have these young men who, are quite literally risking their lives and certainly their careers, certainly risking a huge amount by not kind of full-throatedly singing their national anthem. Again, in their game against Wales, did this kind of half-hearted thing. They're still maintaining some kind of protest. And actually there was lots of people, as Guardian reports, in the crowd holding up shirts that had the name of Mahsa Amini, the woman who was killed, on it, having different displays of protest as well from the crowd, booing the national anthem. And I think it's just really important to highlight that this is happening at the same time as in Iran, authorities have arrested a former team player called Varaya Ghafouri, who was accused, it says in The Guardian, accused of insulting and damaging the Iranian national anthem. So it just shows how serious this kind of action that they're taking in Qatar is and how laudable it is because of, you know, there's this funny thing happening in the World Cup where, you know, you have people taking the knee, you have people wearing armbands and all that kind of stuff, which is, you know, we can have a debate about whether politics should be in sport or not. But then there's sort of silence on the issue of women. And obviously with protests going on in Iran against the regime, you know, in relation to response to the murder of Mahsa Amini, but also more broadly about the kind of the regulations and rules there for moral living. I think this is a really brave thing and they should be commended for
And
it.
not only is the world spotlight on them here in the World Cup, but actually their own country is watching their every move as well. They're under a lot of scrutiny, aren't they?
They are. I mean, it's a difficult time for them.
And I tell you what, on a completely lighter note, what good-looking young men there in that team. Wow, did you notice?
No, I haven't noticed. I didn't notice.
Did you notice?
No.
Did you notice?
No,
Yes,
well,
I did. I know that I was watching some of the football, but the close-ups of the very good-looking young men in that.
What about the shots? How are the shots? You know, hitting the ball, things like that. How was that?
Noticed that. Didn't notice that, but the shorts were great.
I was watching for my own reasons, I think.
That's fair
They
enough.
were. They're extremely good-looking.
They're gorgeous.
Young men. Yeah.
You're right.
Let's have a bit of some Strictly in the Mirror begins.
Yeah, what's happening on Strictly?
Well, Hamza, who is this incredible guy, and I honestly, he's my tip to win. He is so wonderful because he's not a dancer. He's you know, a photographer of seals and wildlife in Scotland and, in fact, all over the world. But he is incredible. I mean, I just think, have you seen him?
No, not at all.
He's well worth watching. He is brilliant, and I hope that he wins because this is a person who never danced before in his life. Suddenly he goes each week, learns a new dance, and does it brilliantly. And he's fantastic.
And he's by profession a natural history photographer.
Yes.
I didn't know him at all.
Yeah, and he is fantastic, and he's so kind and nice, and it's just everything about him is wonderful. And I think he deserves to win. And it's, you know, these shows go on and on and on, and they you know, they need to do something new, and I think he would be an absolute wonderful winner. There's a story in here that he's got a lovely fan in Gail, and apparently he's lifted her up like he lifted this girl up in above his head in Strictly Come Dancing. So she's had a wonderful time up in the Highlands being lifted by him.
I'll bet.
Oh, there you go. How we go from that to pollution at the time, Dad? I'm not quite sure. It's a bit of a gear change, as it were.
Yeah, me and Christopher were talking about this in the break because we both live in the same part of London. And it's, you know, at the moment, driving in London is incredibly frustrating, if not impossible, because of the introduction of low traffic neighbourhoods, the ULEZ, the low emission zones, congestion charge, all of the rest of it. And now the daily £12.50 charge for the ULEZ is going to be expanded. First, it went out in 2019 to the North and South Circular. Now it's going to be expanded out almost pretty much to the borders of the M25.
Who does it apply to? Because I've never understood it.
It's diesel cars that are older than 2015 and petrol cars that are older than 2005. So basically, if you've, particularly with diesel cars, I mean, 2015, it wasn't so long ago.
No.
And lots of people are having to essentially ditch perfectly usable, vital for their lifestyles, you know, whether it's work or if you've got someone disabled in your family or if you've got someone old in your family, if you've got a family, you know, who is able to do a big shop on the bus is impossible without losing your mind, that it's going to completely remove their ability to get around London.
Particularly when they were actually encouraged to take
I say we were all told to buy
Yeah.
diesel cars. It was that was the big push.
Yeah.
It's basic. This is
pretty scandalous, that.
Sadiq Khan he uses the story of this tragic story of this little girl who it was said that she died. Part of the reasons why she died was because of asthma caused by pollution. We know that pollution is a big problem in London, but instead of doing things like increasing public transport, giving people more choice to be able to move around, we're essentially, you know, the clampdown on cars is basically a poor tax, because the only people that can afford clean electric vehicles are those with lots of money, and the only people who can afford to pay the £12.50 charge are people with lots of money.
Yeah.
Well, once again, it's hammering the motorist, isn't it? Which,
and where I live in Hackney,
always seems to
it's just impossible.
It
to
is
move in a car.
impossible. I mean, it's so frustrating. I used to have wonderful shortcuts into the centre of London. Everything now is double the time, if you take a taxi, it's triple the price. I mean, everything is against you as a driver.
Darlings, you'll just have to move out of London.
You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Hello, could you move out of London?
I can never leave East London. It's where I was born and bred, and I'll...
Well, you've got more right
I'll
to be in
start
London than
boycotting the
most,
LTNs.
then.
That's
the rest
what
of
I'll
us
do.
have just got to move out.
Yes, exactly.
Look, we need to leave it there, sadly.
Oh, no!
Yes, I'm sorry. There's so many
Ella
interesting stories to
Higgins,
talk
thank
about.
you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
Including about
but
taking gravy on holiday with you, things like that. We'll do that another day, maybe tomorrow.
But we do need to talk about new research from the charity Centrepoint, because that suggests there are 86,000 young people experiencing homelessness in the UK, 8,500 of them in the West Midlands.
Yeah, it's a big problem there in Birmingham. Many of them turn towards local charities like St Basil's. And every year they host an event called the Big Sleep Out to raise tens of thousands of pounds for their youth homelessness prevention work.
Well, our reporter Jack Carson went along last night to find out more.
An annual event since 1990, the St Basil's Big Sleep Out challenges people to sleep rough for one night in an effort to raise money for the campaign to prevent youth homelessness in Birmingham. It's a night which easily raises thousands of pounds for the charity every year, and Head of Fundraising Barry Hodge says the event has never been more important.
This is our flagship fundraiser. It raises the most money out of all the events that we do throughout the year, and ultimately it allows us to be able to provide that much needed support for young people living in the West Midlands.
And for people here tonight doing it, what can they expect? I can see tinsel, I can see boxes.
Yeah.
What have we got?
It's one of those bizarre events that it's a coming together of people from all different walks of life. We've got schools that are here tonight, we've got faith groups that are here tonight, we've got big corporates that are here tonight, we've got people from local government that are here tonight that are taking part in this event. It's a bringing together because people are united in this stance of homelessness should not be part of growing up, homelessness should not be part of our society. So ultimately what they'll experience tonight is, for the first half, it will be this very relaxed, friendly atmosphere, but the truth is when midnight kicks in and this event starts proper, the realities of the thing that we are trying to prevent will kick in. And I tell you something, for a lot of the people who do this event, it's not the actual doing the event where the realisation kicks in, it's the bit where they get home, they have a shower and they get into their own bed and realise that they're not going to have to do it again tonight, and that's the moment that will stick in their head forevermore.
The people here all get given cardboard and plastic sheeting to create their own accommodation for the night, and people get pretty creative with their designs too. But behind the box, there's a more serious reason why people take part.
We wanted to come to show how it is like living on the streets like a homeless person, and like how they have to like use cardboards and they can't actually have like a proper roof over their head because they don't have enough money.
So it just felt like a really good thing to do for us together, to do something that obviously affects people in our community, and see what it's like for them.
The charity Centrepoint estimates a 33% increase in the homeless population in England by 2024. As Birmingham is the youngest city in the country, many of the people that fall into it here will be aged below 24. It's why St Basil's focuses so much of its work on prevention.
It is really about refocusing where the priorities are. As a country, we tend to focus on crisis, and the old saying goes, if you always focus on crisis, all you're ever going to get is crisis. So the issues that we're trying to resolve are much further upstream. So we're working in schools, we're working in colleges. I mean, I'll give you a quick example. I was at a school today talking to the young people about homelessness, because we know if we catch people when things start to, maybe fall apart, we can prevent them from ending up in a situation where they're going to have to rely on a charity like us, or rely on, local councils, or, anything else, because ultimately that is what we're about, that is what we're trying to achieve.
Many people this Christmas will be on the brink of becoming homeless. If they do, charities like St Basil's, thanks to donations from people at events like this, will be there to support them. Jack Carson, GB News.
Oh, it's
Brilliant
incredible work they do.
Reminds you of Princess Diana, doesn't it? Do you remember she took out Princes William and Harry onto the streets of London, didn't she, to show them what it was like to sleep rough?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff she did on the QT when they came out later.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about your pets, eh? We're going to be meeting the world's oldest cat in a few moments. But right now, this is a picture from Steve in Wolverhampton, who says, "This is my honorary cat, Tony. He actually belongs to my next-door neighbour, but has decided that I make a good surrogate owner. He is 17 and fit as a fiddle."
Oh, beautiful. Tina says, Fred has always got to get in on the act. Oh, I know that feeling.
Eric in New Jersey says, "Love you guys." From the USA, this is Dash, an 8-year-old Italian greyhound. That's a very beautiful face.
Beautiful. And very quickly, this is Baby Cat. It was around 19 years old. She was stray in Brunei, brought her to the UK. She was very ill, but she survived an operation and is taking her medicine, being fed by spoon every morning.
Oh, being spoon-fed, literally. Thank you for your lovely pictures, and we'll be meeting that world's oldest cat in the next hour. So do stay with us, won't you?
Hello, a very good morning to you. It is a dry start out there for many of us, but more wet and windy weather will soon be on the way. However, it is the last bout of Atlantic weather before a change arrives next week. For the time being, a brief ridge of high pressure has affected us during the last 24 hours, but weather fronts are knocking on the door. Those weather fronts are spilling in from the west. Ahead of them, some clear spells, some sunshine first thing for parts of central and eastern England. A chill in the air here, a few mist patches. Further west, it's been a mild start. We've got the wind and rain pushing into Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, Western England and Wales by the afternoon. That rain initially light and patchy, it turns heavier and more persistent later, driven in by gale force winds around coastal areas. However, those winds are coming from the south, so 12, 13, perhaps even 14 or 15 degrees is possible. In East Anglia in the southeast, it's a bright afternoon, but the cloud will be thickening and the rain arrives here during the evening. Likewise for northern Scotland, the rain on and off through the day, but the more persistent stuff arrives during the evening. Could cause some issues for central parts of Scotland because of the very soggy weather that we've seen recently. The rain lingering there through the night for East Anglia in the southeast, but elsewhere it does clear. And with clear spells arriving by dawn, well, it looks like there'll be some showers in the northwest, but otherwise a bright start for many on Sunday. I don't think it'll be a frosty start. There'll be too much cloud and enough of a breeze to prevent that. And we've still got those outbreaks of rain on and off for East Anglia in the southeast during Sunday morning, perhaps turning heavier and more persistent again into the afternoon. Brighter conditions elsewhere, still quite a few showers for parts of western Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales, but otherwise some high cloud and largely dry and bright weather. 12, 13 Celsius still possible and a less windy day, certainly. Now into the start of next week, there'll still be a few showers around, especially for western parts on Monday, but overall there is a trend towards drier weather.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flop at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12, on TV, on radio and online.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
A goalless draw for England and a disappointing loss for Wales.
Good morning, 9 o'clock, Saturday the 26th of November. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the whole of the UK on your TV, on your radio, online, so you can watch us wherever in the world you might be. Here are your top stories this morning.
Well, the Three Lions failed to score in their second World Cup match against the USA last night as Gareth Southgate braces for the next clash against Wales next week, and the Dragons must beat England in order to make it through to the next stage after they suffered a 2-0 loss to Iran.
An investigation into Dominic Raab's behaviour has been expanded after a third formal complaint. Rishi Sunak still has confidence in his Deputy Prime Minister. Mr Raab, meanwhile, has denied all allegations, insisting he's behaved professionally at all times.
And an increase in sales despite the cost of living crisis. We're reflecting on Black Friday and looking ahead to Cyber Monday. Just the same thing?
Yeah, it just endless shopping, really. It was a long time ago. Black Friday was when you were meant to go out into the high street shopping, and Cyber Monday was meant to be when you did your online shopping. Since then, I think everything's more or less gone online, hasn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, let us know what you want to talk about this morning. Loads of you, actually. We'll run through some of these in a little bit. Getting in touch on Scottish independence, Nicola Sturgeon. That's hit a note with a lot of you north of the border. Keep your thoughts coming through. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Well, let's talk football, should we? Because England fans were subjected to a snooze fest last night as the Three Lions drew 0-0 with the USA.
And meanwhile, early on in the day, Welsh hearts were absolutely broken as they conceded 2 late goals to Iran.
OK, let's head to Doha. Paul Hawkins is there for us now. I mean, look, got the points, Paul, as far as England's concerned, got the points. But, I mean, a very disappointing match.
Yeah, you don't have to be a football expert to work out that that was rubbish, frankly, from England last night. And they'd be the first to admit it, although Gareth Southgate saying in the press conference, look, we've got 4 points from 2 games, we're in pole position to qualify from the group, that's the main thing. But England were rubbish last night, and the USA were very good. It wasn't just a snooze fest. It was quite anxious for England fans because USA were full of energy, they made decisions quickly, they were right in England's faces, they hit the post. They were the best team for that 90 minutes and England had to ride their luck at times. So England getting away with it last night. This is why the England fans felt like they did afterwards.
US had more energy, they were counter-pressing, and I don't know, we weren't able to pass around and beat their press, and it was really frustrating. The old doubts of England are creeping in, I think, aren't they? So, like, no, not confident, but I know that we should do it, and I'll just think about that.
I think it was really good. It was an interesting game, but so was America, so it felt very equal.
Many partners and sponsors.
I thought it was quite defensive, really, typical Southgate play. I thought he was scared of losing rather than really wanting to win. But overall, I mean, credit to America. I think that although England were favourites, America were always going to be tough to beat. And the main thing is we didn't lose, and I think we've got a great chance of beating Wales. So hopefully we'll still win the group.
Yeah, so England need to avoid, they can afford to lose to Wales on Tuesday 3-0 and still qualify for the next round of the World Cup. For Wales, though, much more different. They have to beat England on Tuesday when they play them. They got that, they needed the Americans and the English to draw last night, so that works in their favour, but they have to beat England on Tuesday and hope other results go their way. It was even worse for Wales yesterday against Iran. They had their keeper sent off. They were easily the worst side. And right at the end, Iran scored deep into stoppage time. Here's the Wales manager, Rob Page, talking about why Iran deserved to win.
They deserved the win. Before I made the changes, before I made the substitutions, they hit the post, they hit the bar. They had a goal disallowed first half. So, yeah, I'm not going to sit here with sour grapes and say we deserved anything out of that game.
So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult for Wales to qualify. Not impossible, though, and England have a lot of work to do if they're going to trouble any of the big names at this tournament. And also some criticism of Gareth Southgate for not even using one of England's best players, Phil Foden, last night. Now, in terms of what is happening today, well, that's why it's so noisy behind me, because the match of today, the late kick-off, 7 o'clock, UK time, 10 p.m. local time, is Argentina against Mexico. Normally that'd be a decent match to watch anyway, but given Argentina have to win to qualify for the next round, and Mexico will have the bragging rights of potentially knocking Argentina out of the World Cup, that is what that noise is going on over there. So that's the Argentina fans and the Mexico fans in full voice, and we're gonna see them all day until sort of 8 p.m. tonight, marching up and down here, the Souk Waqif, singing, cheering and chanting, etc. So that is the late kick-off. Before that, France take on Denmark. We've just had a blast from the Marseillaise from the French fans who were just sitting over there. Before that, Poland take on Saudi Arabia, and the early kick-off is Tunisia against Australia. So for football fans, you can see Kylian Mbappe, Robert Lewandowski and Lionel Messi in action today. Some decent matches.
Lovely stuff. I tell you what, Paul, you enjoy yourself while you're out there. And I know you, Toby, who's doing the camera for you out there, who only went out on holiday, and we've recruited him.
Oh, poor Toby, yes, I thought he was just going, oh,
yeah,
well,
but he's out there doing the camera work, so you two have a good time while you're out there. That's what I say.
And there's a nice souvenir store behind you. You might go and peruse that, because we fancy a souvenir.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Toby, if you're on talkback and listening in, go and buy something. There you go. Anyway, look, what did you make of how England performed last night? Let's talk to someone who knows a thing or two about managing the England side. Sam Allardyce. Sam, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us on GB News. I mean, what did you make of it? I mean, did you view last night as being a lacklustre performance as the rest of us did?
Absolutely. I sat there with great expectation, like everybody else, great excitement over the first game performance against Iran, and I was looking forward to the game, thinking that yes, it'll be a little tougher than the Iran match, but certainly getting the levels of performance, they will surely get the opportunity to win this game. But unfortunately, almost from the very start, it didn't pan out that way. And like everybody's saying, you don't need to be a professional to see what was a lacklustre performance, a lack of energy, a lack of the team closing down. Everything they did against Iran, they didn't do against USA, and ultimately ended up pretty lucky to come away with a 0-0 draw, of course. And that was obviously in the end through good defending and a little bit of luck when America hit the bar in the first half. So, yeah, really, really disappointed. And the only thing out of that game was we didn't concede a goal, and we're virtually looking like getting through. I mean, I don't know whether it's true, but they were sort of saying, I think Wales need to beat England about 4-0 if they are going to get through, so we're nearly there. But the whole country, the fans in Doha would have been very, very disappointed, as we all were.
So what would be your advice to the team, if you were in charge, to the team, to Gareth Southgate, for instance? How do they keep their nerve and maybe ratchet their game up a bit before the next one, the next big one that they're calling the Battle of Britain against Wales?
Yes, and you'll certainly need your energy for that one. And I think, without any question of a doubt, there's enough experience in the backroom staff, the manager, there's enough experience in the squad now, having gone through 2 tournaments, that they've got the tools to win this competition. But Gareth needs to use the squad to its full potential, and that means, for me, quite a few changes for the next game, because the energy of the team was lacklustre, and that was probably the main reason why they didn't get the chance to win this game. So he's got a fabulous squad, and he needs to use it to its full potential, because anybody coming in will be equally as good as the players that have played up to now. So for me, make the changes, give the lads who haven't played a game yet the opportunity to get into the team, show what they can do, should be full of energy and excitement, taking the game into what is a massive game, obviously, of course, England versus Wales.
Do you think was Southgate's thinking then by, I mean, not bringing Grealish on till, you know, pretty late on in the game, you know, no sign of Foden at all, which a lot of people are disappointed about. I mean, what do you think his game plan was?
Not losing in the end. That's why we saw Henderson coming on. He looked like a little concerned about the way America were playing, and shored it up by putting Henderson on to block up the midfield more. That's certainly how it looked to me. And of course, we didn't really want to see that, but I can understand it from a manager's point of view. We're not playing well. The opposition are taking the game to us, so let's put another defensive midfield on to block it up, which effectively it did in terms of not conceding a goal. But you know, that's not what England should be about for me against the USA. They're a side that we have got enough talent to beat, but unfortunately that talent didn't produce on the evening, and that looked about the lack of energy that the team seemed to have. So they've been through a gruelling season up to now. They didn't have a lot of time together. They did a fabulous game in the first game, but he picked the same side, and they looked like they didn't have the energy to get to the levels they did in the first game. So use the squad, use it to its full potential. It's a fabulous, fabulous squad. And I think if he replaces any player that he did in the first 11 in the game last night, he'll be equally as good, if not better, in the next game.
And what have you, personally, after all the years you've devoted to football, do you sit back and watch it just with a bottle of beer or a nice cup of tea with the family, or do you go somewhere special to watch all these matches?
I was actually watching it with Darren Bent and a few others for Talk TV last night. So I was jumping up and down like everybody else, shouting at the screen, saying, "Do this, do that." So I got very, very, very frustrated because I was looking forward to the game so much and looking forward to another performance to the level they did against Iran, and unfortunately it didn't happen. So I was only pleased that in the end they drew, and like everybody has been saying, well, we didn't lose. Looks like we're going through, but we'll need to do a lot more if we're going to win it this time. And, I tipped us to go all the way. Maybe not to win it, but I tipped us to go to the final this time.
Yeah, well, that's clearly the bad omen, Sam. You should be watching it with some of us. And that'll be a much better omen for next week, I should think. It looks terrific to talk to you. Thanks ever so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, bye-bye. Thank you very much for joining us.
You see, now there's a man.
Can you imagine, though? I was just thinking of him watching it with a load of mates, football-y mates.
Yeah.
Did they, immediately the game's over, go into sort of Gary Lineker, let's analyse everything?
Oh, yeah, they must do.
They must go on for hours talking about it.
It must do. Proper post-match analysis, that.
Amazing.
I
bet the atmosphere's good, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. I mean, I don't know. You just sort of think, I was expecting more last night. Not that I know much about football, but I was still expecting more than that.
Yeah, something a bit more dramatic. Wasn't dramatic, was it?
Wasn't, well, apart from the near blooming misses. I mean, that hit on the post that America did, USA did.
Well, and the same thing happened in the Welsh match too. Two very near goals within probably 20 seconds of each other. One hit the right-hand post, and then with about 20 seconds later, one hit the left-hand post. Both of them could so easily have gone in. And then both would have lost a lot earlier in the game than they did.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Right, let's take you through the headlines, should we, at 9:13. And 250 social housing tenants are meeting later on today for the launch of an official resident-led panel to improve unsafe conditions. The Housing Secretary wants to end tenants being denied a proper voice. Michael Gove is cracking down on unsafe social housing conditions after 2-year-old Awab Ishaq died from a respiratory condition linked to prolonged exposure to mould.
Rail strikes continue today with more travel disruption expected for passengers. Members of ASLEF across 11 train operators are going to walk out in a dispute over pay, meaning a significantly reduced service today.
The Princess of Wales says not enough is being done to recognise the importance of early childhood. Writing in The Telegraph today, Catherine says research shows the early years having an influence on our ability to form relationships, succeed at work and our health. She says people need to focus on nurturing children to help them better deal with society later in life.
And the Met Office has issued yellow warnings for rain in parts of southern England, Wales and Scotland. The warnings in Wales and England will come into force at 2 o'clock this afternoon and will stay in place until 3 in the morning. Forecasters say there'll be disruption to travel as a result, as if there wasn't enough disruption to travel already. Strikes and rain.
Oh, yes. Well, there you go. It's all very depressing, isn't it? Loads of you getting in touch. Let me just tell you, very quickly, want to run through some of the... I asked for your views if you're north of the border about independence and what's going on with Nicola Sturgeon and all the rest of it. Jenny, here we go. Jenny, I think this is key for me. She says, my husband and I voted for independence last time, but would never vote for it again. We can't live in limbo. And in today's climate, we need each other as the United Kingdom. Nicola Sturgeon is damaging the country and needs to address the immediate needs instead of tunnel vision, running the country with her fingers in her ears.
Interesting that, because Richard says something similar. He says Nicola Sturgeon is desperately trying to avoid answering the questions and dealing with the horrendous state of our country. By demanding a referendum and blaming Westminster for not giving them one, distracts voters from the real issues that we have here.
Yeah.
Not everyone in Scotland is a Nicola Sturgeon fan.
No, Julie says, in my opinion, Scotland's services have gone downhill under the SNP. But the issue is there's a group of voters who will blindly vote for them regardless of how badly they're managing the country. So not a single supporter of the SNP or independents getting in touch. I mean, perhaps that's not a surprise with, the demographic in a way. But if you are a supporter of Nicola Sturgeon, what have you, it'd be good to hear your perspective on all of that.
However, you do have views on gravy.
Oh.
This is what really matters in life, I think. Mike says, hi, guys, I think the perfect gravy is what your granny used to make.
Oh.
That's probably very true.
True. Now, Lisa in Birmingham, Lisa says, I'm vegan and the popular brand that I've referred to, you can think gravy, you think... Anyway, she said the red carton beef gravy has no beef in it. It's made from soya. But I've just looked it up, Lisa, online. You can look at the ingredients, and it's got beef extract in it.
Oh, has it?
Yes. So...
Because I do remember there being a sort of media scandal a few years ago about somebody's beef cubes not having beef in them.
Yeah.
But no, they do. Joyce, however, in Chesterfield says, when I make gravy, I always boil peppers, celery, onions. When cooked, I then liquidize it to make the gravy. It makes gravy very tasty. And the reason we're talking about it is because in the newspapers, apparently, they're saying that we love our gravy so much in this country, we actually take it on holiday with us and then pour it over salads, which I don't understand.
I don't believe it. I'm sure someone from the Mirror will be interested. No, this is true. We've done our research. Well, maybe you have. I, as an individual, do not believe that we take gravy abroad and pour it on salads.
I'd like to think you looked forward to a holiday elsewhere with more enjoyment than just thinking, oh, we'll be without our gravy.
I love my gravy, but I wouldn't pour it on a salad.
No, I agree. OK. But any more interesting views, do get in touch. And also, of course, in a few moments' time, we will be meeting the world's oldest cat, who's 26, knocking 27. And you've been in touch with us all morning with your wonderful pictures of your moggies and doggies. So thank you very much for that. World's oldest cat coming up a bit later.
Yeah. Now, look, many times, in fact, over the years, I've talked about it many times, stalking as an issue. And there's great campaigns around people like the Susie Lamplugh Trust and all that, because it's not just that it's an uncomfortable thing, it can lead to things that are much, much worse. And every time we talk to victims of stalking, the one thing that you always get across is actually how life-devastating it is while this is ongoing. But very sadly, it's been brought closer to home for us here at GB News.
Yes, you may have seen it in yesterday's Daily Mail.
Yeah, our very own Ellie Costello has been a victim of stalking. A victim is the wrong word, Ellie, in a way, I sort of think. This has all come to an end now, and the person involved in this has ended up in court. But what has it been like for you? What actually do you go through when you know this is all happening?
I think I had quite a brave face on when it first started. So it first started here at work. So the gentleman in question was a guest on a programme via Zoom. Then that led to us being connected on Twitter. He then started messaging me, and it just started, thanks for having me. I said, you're welcome, you were great. Just standard thank yous, just polite chat. And then it escalated quite quickly into, I love you, you motivate me beyond words, you're so special, you're so precious.
Point, were you able to put him off, or did you must have said things to him that said, no, that's
yes,
inappropriate?
So, I mean, firstly, Anne, it's a bit funny, I think as women we would tend to, you just ignore it because you think it's going to go away. And there is an element as a female reporter, I think you just kind of, it comes with the territory and you are going to get some creepy messages. So I just ignored it to start with. And then after about, I'd say 6 or 7 of these messages in a row, I just said, look, this needs to stop. It's making me really uncomfortable, and this is so inappropriate. Stop. And then that's when it continued. And what I didn't realise was, until I later spoke to the police, was that was harassment at that point. I didn't even realise I was being harassed at that point. But if you tell someone to stop and they continue with that behaviour that you've asked them to stop, that is harassment. So I didn't even realise that. And then after that, I ended up blocking him on all forms of social media because the messages were getting completely out of hand. And then he started sending flowers to the workplace. He showed up here in the office.
Yes, he actually got in at one point.
He actually did get in. He managed to name some people here, obviously done his homework, and he was allowed in. He was then taken out. But he did get in this close to me, and that's the impact. It's you don't know what that person wants with you. Do they want a photograph? Do they want a hug? Do they want a hello? Or is it something more sinister? And that's what was going on underneath the surface. And I was putting on this brave face, but actually I was really quite scared. And I think I've only really realised that taking it to court.
Yeah, did you speak in court?
I did. I chose to.
Yeah, you chose to. And what message did you want to get over to them?
I feel like I had a choice whether to speak in court, and the officer that worked with me and the police have been fabulous with me. They gave me a choice whether I wanted to speak or not, and it was perhaps the easiest option not to. But when the last incident that I had with my stalker was at Windsor, which Stephen saw me afterwards.
That's at the Queen's funeral.
It was at the Queen's funeral.
Now, see, that really surprised because you were out in the crowds doing sort of two ways, as we call them, for us, and then obviously it all stopped happening. It all stopped happening, and you turned back up at our position. I've got to be honest, I've never seen anyone so upset. I mean, you weren't just upset, you were absolutely shaken to the core. I mean, it was really distressing to see.
So this has been going on at this point for over a year. And
oh, my goodness, I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, 16 months in total. And it was the Queen's funeral. And you know, for us as journalists, that means so much to us. And I love Her Majesty, and I wanted to do a really good job. And for this channel, I wanted to do a really good job. I've been working hard all morning, and as you do in this job, the first question is always, Ellie, where are you this morning? And I said where I was. And it later transpired that he must have followed me from that position that I so publicly reported. And I headed down to the Long Walk in Windsor. 250,000 people were there, by the way, 250,000 people. And I looked up, and there he was, like not even 10 feet away from my face. And he had his hands in his pocket. He'd obviously been there a while. Hands in his pockets, staring at me and just smiling with the most sinister smile. It was like he was enjoying watching me being so uncomfortable. I was by myself. I'd walked away from my cameraman, so that was my fault. And I just went into a panic attack. Luckily, it was the Queen's funeral. I managed to run to an officer. I don't know where that strength came from, but I just ran to the nearest police officer. And I could still see him in my eyesight. I could still see where he was, and I could not get out my words. I was just having a panic attack. And he got away, but later was arrested for what happened. He was held in a cell overnight. He pled guilty, which is also very good. And then I was given the choice to speak in court. And I chose to because I felt like I let myself down that day, because I should have said something or done something. But I felt like I had, so I wanted him to hear what that day had done to me.
Was it open court, or were you behind a curtain?
I was behind a curtain. I wasn't brave enough to do it without a curtain.
Blame you.
And I feel like that's something he would have wanted to have seen me or be close to me or something like that. So I didn't want him to have that, but I did want him to hear what had done to me. So that's what I decided to do, and I just jotted down some notes. And I spoke about, the paranoia, and after that particular incident, I could see him everywhere just because you're so paranoid. Yes. And there were incidents, I was walking home from home one day, I don't even think I was working. Walking home from the station one day, I don't think I was even working. And if my flat was left, I turned right because I was almost certain that the man walking behind me was this person. And I hid in my neighbour's driveway just to protect myself from this man. It wasn't even him. The man walked past, it was somebody else.
But that's where it gets to every corner of your life, isn't it? It impacts all of your life.
It's been described to me as like living with an illness. So it's always there, not serious illness, but a cold, like the symptoms are always there. It's almost a part of you, and you're so used to it, and being on edge and looking around and feeling nervous if people approach you. I mean, I get approached a lot on the streets with my job, and people are tapping you on the back, "Hi, Ellie," and you're just so paranoid about who this person could be or what they want with you. So I really hope this conviction, and I am one of the lucky ones, I also want to say that, my case could be a lot worse.
But I'll tell you what's interesting, because you put like a sort of statement online last night about the case and what had happened. The responses you got from people who've been in similar situations.
It's terrifying. I have never really spoken about what happened to me. You saw it, but I wasn't making it public knowledge.
No, I didn't know anything about it at the time.
Nobody did, really, not even my family. I mean, I've intentionally not really told my family anything because I wanted to protect them. Only a very close circle of people knew. I didn't know it was going to be in the Daily Mail yesterday. That was something that was told to me the night before. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing now because of the reaction, and it has, thankfully, been so supportive and kind, but I was worried about how that would be perceived by people. But I think it is really important to talk about because the amount of people I've spoken to, my friends, my person who does my eyebrows, my hairdresser, like friends from my old workplace, have all said, "Oh, I've had a stalker for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years," and that it's not spoken about. It just seems to be so commonplace, but people think if they go to the police, they're not going to be taken seriously.
Well, I think that the police attitude has moved on because when I was your age, years and years ago, the same sort of thing happened to me.
Oh, I'm
and when I went to the police, they said, well, we can't do anything until he does something. I hope the attitude is much, much different now.
Well, first of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you because I know the impacts that it has on people. But yes, I have been very, very lucky, and I feel guilty for saying that now when I hear the messages from people who've been suffering for years.
You must never feel guilty.
But I felt guilty that I was treated so well, but I hope that's a sign that the police have moved on so well.
I hope so.
And I almost accidentally reported my crime. So I just said, it was actually a loved one who reported it on my behalf because I didn't realise it was...
Can you relax now at all, or are you still...
No, I think it does change you. Yeah, I think it does change you. I hope I can. But even today, I mean, this is the impact that it has on you. Even today, I pulled up in the car and I kind of looked both sides before getting out because I was concerned that he might be there. He wouldn't be. It'd be very silly to be there now with a 5-year restraining order. But you're on edge. You're on edge constantly. But only 5% of cases get convictions. So although the police officers were great with me, and I was very lucky that so much of mine was initially based on social media, whereas black and white, there's so much evidence. The stack of evidence against him was incredible. So that's perhaps why it was easier for me to get conviction, but only 5% of people do. And there are women who are actually in houses with their stalkers, with their perpetrators, who have got no escape from ex-partners who just won't let them go. So, you know, it can be so dangerous, and that's what you were talking about just before we came on air, that there are really dangerous and dark elements of stalking, and although it could start with something as simple as a message, it does often... tends to
I think
escalate.
it shows up something very dodgy about the character of somebody who becomes so obsessed that they behave in that way.
But it's not normal.
It's not
It's
normal
not a normal.
behaviour. No, it isn't. No, that's what's.
But we shouldn't normalise it. And why do we normalise it then? It's just like, oh, they're a bit odd. And we just allow it to continue, and then we allow it to escalate. And I was frustrated with myself that I let it go on for 12 months, 13 months before that incident at Windsor, where, as Stephen described, I was a shell of myself, really.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody so shaken. And I wonder now that you've had a conviction, and now that you are talking, I mean, I know you were sort of ended up reluctantly in the Mail, just the way these
things happen, yeah.
But can you gain some strength from the fact that you're now actually able to say, look, I'm a strong woman, I've got through this, and, you know, this, and to other people who are going through this, they can look at it and say, well, actually, you know, there are things I can do, the police will listen.
Yeah, definitely. I feel so proud now that I've done it. Now I'm on the other side, and it did take a lot. And on Thursday, when I was heading to court, I was like, why have I done this? And it was awful. But coming out of there, it was such a cathartic experience to talk about what happened to me and for people to listen. And the magistrates that listened to me were so...
Did they say anything?
They asked how long my restraining order should be. And initially they said it shouldn't be very long, a year or something, but this has been going on for 18 months, so we need a little bit longer than that. And my lawyer then pushed for 5 years, and for me, I'm delighted with that. I can rest safe for 5 years. So that's really, really good. But no, for me, I definitely wanted to take it to court. And I would say, if there's anybody watching and listening and you're going through something similar, go to the police, show them what's happened, or tell them what's happened, and they will take you seriously. And hopefully you too can get a conviction. But the more people that report it, the more likely it is to be taken seriously. There was a super complaint yesterday that was put forward by, who was saying that there just needs to be a set way of police forces in this country dealing with stalking, because that's the issue. So there's so much disparity as to where you are in the country and what officer you get. The police with me were brilliant, the Met Police, but there's other people that don't experience the same. So I really hope something is done with this.
And it's something that's nothing just to do with your job or the fact that you're famous. This is happening all over the country to women, and in some cases men too, who are just just ordinary folk, and you would never know about it, you would never hear about it, but it's common.
Really common, and I'm so glad you said that, because that is a really common misunderstanding, that it is someone with a profile or someone who's on telly or radio. It's not at all. It can be anybody. I mean, the messages I have had from men and women telling me that they've been stalked, they've been harassed for years, it doesn't matter who you are, it could be anybody, and we just shouldn't normalise that behaviour or think if we ignore it, it will go away. As we were saying, if someone is messaging you, you tell them to stop, they continue, or they come to your house, you tell them to stop and they continue, that is harassment. And you can go to the police. And an action can be taken, yeah.
Oh, Ellie, do you know, it breaks my heart because you are, as people will know, you are a bubbly ball of fun. And
you don't deserve that.
You don't deserve
well,
it.
no one does.
And even talking about it, you can tell
Can
that,
you?
you know, oh, yeah.
Love you.
Oh, no, love you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Darling.
Love you guys.
You're through the other side.
Yep, through the worst now, so I just hope that's the end of it. Yeah.
It will be.
It will be.
Oh,
well done.
Sorry.
No, don't be.
That's rotten, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh,
if you've been affected by anything like that as well, do keep in touch with us. We'll put some names and numbers up on our website as well.
Yes, we will.
The Susie Lamplugh Trust, as Ellie said there, are very active in working against this sort of thing. We'll make sure the relevant names and numbers are up on our website so you can find out more.
Yeah, and lots of, I mean, I won't go through them all, but Elaine's been in touch with some messages of support for you, and Pat as well, and there you go. It's so upsetting.
They're rotten, and nobody deserves that.
Blooming swine. Anyway, look, we're going to take a short break. More to come, just a moment.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, and then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
I think I've seen probably quite enough of Matt Hancock to last me a lifetime.
I'll also be getting to know you better, travelling to find out what you think about the politicians who are fighting for your vote.
They've got to get this country back on track.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. only on GB News, on TV, radio and online.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Now it is 9:36. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, this is really interesting. Energy grants of £15,000 are set to be given to middle-income household earners to help insulate their homes under new government plans.
It's a lot of money. Business Secretary Grant Shapps is set to announce the fund. It's going to cost £1 billion, called Eco Plus, which will help homeowners who are financially able to contribute some money towards the changes.
How is it going to work? The scheme's going to help thousands of homes and will ensure that households are able to save hundreds of pounds every year through being better insulated.
Well, let's talk to Senior Research Fellow at the Centre for Energy Policy and Technology at Imperial College London, Malcolm Grimston, who always joins us to make sense of these things. Malcolm, lovely to see you again.
Morning.
Look, 15 grand is a lot of money in a grant. Clearly, the government thinks this is money which is going to be well worth spending.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just for insulation, that's the thing there, but it's for a variety of potential technologies. Heat pumps, I guess, is going to come into it, but certainly smart meters, which make sure that your house saves energy for you rather than you having to remember to save energy. And I think, it's aimed, as I understand it, towards small council house tax A to D, so smaller properties. Those who live in bigger houses, or London basically, probably won't qualify for it. But energy efficiency has been really the Cinderella of the whole thing. That, reducing energy use, like with any wasteful activity, reducing doing it is always much better than doing it better. And so I think that this is rather late in the day, probably. In doing this, we should have been doing this decades ago.
Of course,
really. Well,
I mean, there's no doubt this is the right way to go, but you just wonder where on earth Grant Shapps is going to get that money from. However, if you look at an ordinary average family home, 15 grand, is that how much it would cost, or would they expect it to cost a lot more and you contribute almost the same amount?
I think it's a match funding arrangement, as I understand it, is that the government will seriously top up money that people are available. The barriers to getting homes efficient aren't just financial. I think many of us are a bit nervous about having builders in the house unnecessarily. And there was one quite famous example where a major do-it-yourself firm had a bigger development in an area, and to appease local people, it says, look, we'll insulate your homes for free. And almost nobody took it up. Now, that was a time when energy was a lot cheaper than it is at the moment. One of the high energy prices are a problem, but one of their benefits is it does make us take energy a lot more seriously. So I would expect a much better take-up of this at the moment.
All right, but four-bedroomed house in, I don't know, Doncaster or something, everything sort of what you might consider average priced. How much would that cost to fully insulate a house like that, do you think?
I don't know. Say it's not just insulation,
no, but to take various measures.
I mean, to really sort out a house at the moment, I'm not sure exactly what the figure would be, but obviously, as the market develops, prices will come down. And I think this is part of what government has in mind, is if we make the whole business cheaper, then those people in bigger houses will take the advantage as well to reduce their energy bills. But as with all things, I mean, the record of this sort of scheme in the past is not enormously beneficial. You may remember the Northern Ireland government was brought down because of a scheme there that was aimed at, at getting better technology introduced, and actually ended up with farmers getting an incentive to heat the barns, waste all the energy, and they could claim back more money than it was paying. So you've got to design these things really tightly. But I do think there's a growing recognition at an individual level as to how important saving energy is, which frankly, with the cheap energy we had during the first decade of this century, first decade and a half perhaps of this century, it wasn't really centre of mind.
Haven't we, in the past?
I think that's absolutely right. Well, we just can't afford, either as individuals or as an economy, to be complacent. We should bear in mind, if we manage to reduce energy use, it's not just about reducing use, of course, it's also about those who can't afford to heat their homes at the moment. They'll probably continue to spend as much as they did before on energy, but they'll get much warmer homes out of it. So that's a great social benefit without necessarily reducing energy use enormously. But for the better off, whose homes are already warm enough, then that's likely to result in a reduction in energy use for the benefit of both those individuals and the economy as a whole.
Do you know how... Sorry.
No, we're out of time.
Oh, shame.
I know.
Well, I was going to say, do you know how to access it? But it's presumably not yet.
I don't think we know yet, and we're waiting for the announcement.
Malcolm, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.
We are running really tight for time, actually, because we've got to talk to Rosemary Schrager at the Ideal Home Show, and then we've got to meet the world's oldest cat. So we're back in a minute.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
And it's about standards and public life. No, I'll tell you what's hypocrisy, Narendra.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin.
We believe in the UK.
No bias, no censorship.
It just doesn't make sense to me. He wasn't doing his job as Chancellor.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something weird happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Morning, and I won't apologise for talking about Christmas. The Christmas edition of the Ideal Home Show has returned to Olympia in London this month.
Well, let's talk to someone who's there and showing off her wares, as it were, celebrity chef Rosemary Schrager. Good morning to you, Rosemary. Lovely to see you. What should we be looking out for? What should we be looking out for this Christmas?
Well, first of all, may I just say, I mean, Christmas is one of these things. It's a wonderful feeling, and coming here is actually the moment you feel Christmassy. It just makes me feel like Christmas. And for me, looking out for something for Christmas is going to be a little bit more low-key this year, but also what is so wonderful about here is you can pick up some amazing deals. I mean, crackers for £5. And things like this, because all you need to know is to have it pop and little joke with it, which is what it's all about. So for me, it's a wonderful opportunity to have some fun, come in, enjoy yourself. And there are people like Matt Tebbett being here, Rob Buhaven, who's a wine expert, and Mark Lloyd, who helps me on the stage, who is just fantastic.
So is there, looking around the Ideal Home Show today, or I don't know whether you've had a moment to yet, what's new? I mean, are there any gadgets that are must-have gadgets or anything that's caught your eye?
I haven't seen, it's the sort of more usual thing. The thing is, the show is divided into four sort of places. You've got the home, you've got the sort of gifts, you've got the celebration one, you've got the food and drink. So you've got everything to get whatever you want, it's there. So there's 4 different elements to it, and there's so much to see. So I think it's an ideas place, but also it's where you can pick up something really which maybe you needed. Now the thing is, I don't know about you, but I sort of go online quite a lot, but actually to be in one place and see what's available and to have so much opportunity to see it, I think it's a great thing to do. And also, you've got singing. Look, you've got singing as well. You've got the Christmas feel. Get into the spirit, and that's it. But yes, you can. There's nothing new as such that I have seen yet, but it's just the usual gadget. But they're fun, something fun.
I just want to know, Rosemary, just to finish it off, have you had a sit on Santa's lap yet? Because I saw he was there.
Come on. So, I think there'd be a problem there, wouldn't there?
Never too old. Never too old for Santa.
Yeah. Santa's walking around having some fun, and it's great. It really is. And as you say, you can meet some wonderful people like lovely Matt Tebbett and people like that here. So it's great. So it's just actually it's Saturday. It's got one more day to go. One more day. Now this is the 11th year, and it's just Christmassy.
Exactly.
So if you want to get into the spirit of it, you come to the Ideal Christmas Show, Ideal Home, and that's what it's all about.
Well, I'm not going to apologise.
It's about cooking.
If we don't see you again before Christmas, for the moment, have a wonderful Christmas, won't you? Happy Christmas indeed. Thank you for joining us.
Oh.
Go out and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, lovely. An old-fashioned Christmas this year is what I fancy.
Well, that's what I suppose you don't expect any entirely new things for Christmas.
I couldn't hear what they were saying.
Oh, there's Rosemary talking in the ether.
Still there.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really want
Spirit of
anything
Christmas.
madly new for Christmas. You want the same old thing, don't you? Same old, same old.
Now, I tell you, talking about things of an age, wind yourself back to 1995. Some significant things happened. John Major was Prime Minister. Britpop reigned. An England player called Jack Grealish was born in Birmingham. And I graduated from university.
And I'd just become a mother for the 5th time. So 1995 was a pretty good year. It was also the year that one very famous feline was born, Flossie, who at 26 is the world's oldest cat and has recently been rehomed with owner Vicky Green, who's the same age.
Oh, well...
hello.
Vicky joins us now, and there's Flossie. Oh, hello, darling. Hello, sweetheart.
Vicky, how did you come to be united with Flossie?
I always wanted to sort of adopt a senior cat, and I decided to look on Cats Protection, found Flossie's profile, I did think they made a spelling error, thinking that she's probably 16, not 26. But when I messaged them, they were like, no, she's 26. So I thought, oh, she'll be perfect for me. I just sort of wanted to give her a good retirement home.
Yeah.
Oh, well, more than retirement. Blimey neck, she's about 125, isn't she, in human terms?
Yes, yeah.
Wow. So what does it take to look after a cat like Flossie? Because I imagine she's going to need maybe a little bit of help with grooming and some, I don't know, maybe some specialist food or things like that?
She's actually, food-wise, she's quite good. She's only got 3 teeth left, so she only has wet food rather than biscuits. But she needs to get her claws cut. But apart from that, she still sort of licks herself clean. She's actually quite an easy cat to look after. You'd think as a senior it would be a bit more difficult, but she definitely doesn't act like a senior cat.
No, she looks quite perky, especially when you think of her age. Do we know what her backstory is?
So her original owner found her outside a hospital when she was a kitten, and she took her in. The owner passed away, and her sister then took her in for another 14 years. She passed away, so her son took her in, and circumstances changed. He just couldn't look after her anymore, so he had to give her to Cats Protection, but that meant I was matched with her.
Well, I tell you what, and what a lovely match, because not only have you got a new perfect feline friend, but a Guinness World Record holder. Yeah, I didn't expect that. Cats Protection sent me a message after I'd adopted her and said, oh, we think she might be the oldest in the world at the moment. Do you mind if we look into it? I was like, no, that's fine. You know, if you want to do the research. Then I got a call about a week later to say she's currently the oldest cat in the world. Oh.
That is quite amazing. And I must say, I can't get over, she doesn't look old, does she?
No, she doesn't. I had a previous cat beforehand who was a senior cat. She was 22 and she looked a lot worse for wear than Flossie currently does.
I've got to ask, does she like to sleep with you at night? Is she a
She
a
does.
cuddler?
She is, yeah. She likes to sort of tap me on the face when she wants some attention. And you have to kind of stroke her until she says she's done with the stroking. But yeah, she sleeps next to me in the bed all night.
Oh, you see, look, I get waken up all through the night with a paw on the face, so I know what that's like. And mine's only a sprightly 14.
Yeah.
But I just think it's absolutely magical. Is she still there? Can we just have another quick look at her?
Yeah, she's still here.
Oh, good morning, Flossie.
Hello, darling.
Oh, she's lovely.
You are a grand old lady.
She's a grand old lady and she's outlived at least a couple of owners, but she's been loved her whole life, hasn't she?
Oh.
Maybe that's
She has.
Yeah. Oh, I think you're doing a wonderful job. It's
do,
brilliant that you're interested in adopting senior cats like that, and I'm glad Flossie's found you.
Yeah. Oh, Vicky, thank you so much indeed. It's really great to see you and very, very good to see Flossie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, it warms, as a cat man, that warms the cockles of
Oh,
my
I bet
heart.
it does. Yeah, I bet it does. It's lovely. Yeah.
Anyway.
26 and loved her whole life, and let's hope she lasts a bit longer too.
Oh, well, let's hope so. Look, that is it from us. We're back tomorrow morning. Esther and Phil are up next. First, though, here's your weather.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It is a dry start out there for many of us, but more wet and windy weather will soon be on the way. However, it is the last bout of Atlantic weather before change arrives next week. For the time being, a brief ridge of high pressure has affected us during the last 24 hours, but weather fronts are knocking on the door. Those weather fronts are spilling in from the west. Ahead of them, some clear spells, some sunshine first thing for parts of central and eastern England. A chill in the air here, a few mist patches. Further west, it's been a mild start. We've got the wind and rain pushing into Northern Ireland, much as Scotland, Western England and Wales by the afternoon. That rain initially light and patchy, it turns heavier and more persistent later, driven in by gale force winds around coastal areas. However, those winds are coming from the south, so 12, 13, perhaps even 14 or 15 degrees is possible. In East Anglia in the southeast, it's a bright afternoon, but the cloud will be thickening and the rain arrives here during the evening. Likewise for northern Scotland, the rain on and off through the day, but the more persistent stuff arrives during the evening. Could cause some issues for central parts of Scotland because of the very soggy weather that we've seen recently.
The rain lingering there through the night for East Anglia in the southeast, but elsewhere it does clear. And with clear spells arriving by dawn, well, it looks like there'll be some showers in the northwest, but otherwise a bright start for many on Sunday. I don't think it'll be a frosty start. There'll be too much cloud and enough of a breeze to prevent that. And we've still got those outbreaks of rain on and off for East Anglia in the southeast during Sunday morning, perhaps turning heavier and more persistent again into the afternoon. Brighter conditions elsewhere, still quite a few showers for parts of Western Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales, but otherwise some high cloud and largely dry and bright weather. 12, 13 Celsius still possible, and a less windy day, certainly. Now into the start of next week, there'll still be a few showers around, especially for western parts on Monday, but overall there is a trend towards drier weather.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
On the Mark Stein Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Stein Show.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday.